All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming in tonight. So today we have Jesus loving homesteader with us, Nathan and Carmen. And guys, thank y'all so much for doing this with us and coming on and spending the evening with us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. Definitely looking forward to it.
I've been looking forward to it for several months now, and I was so excited that you guys chose to come on here. I was like, yes, because I was like, I get either told no or not responded to so much that I kind of get discouraged sometimes, right? Like,
wow.
You'll write somebody and maybe later, and then never write back, and or they just don't respond at all. It's just like crickets. So I'm always thankful when a guest says, yeah, I will come on and do it, because you guys are taking your time, and I know time is something we all don't have the luxury of, and you guys are taking it to spend the evening with me and our followers, and so I'm very thankful for it. So I just want to talk about a few things that we had mentioned earlier before we got on here. First off, how did you guys come into homesteading? What drew you guys to homesteading?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to raise chickens. I guess that was like the first thing. Like when I was like, I always knew I wanted to raise chickens. I just thought it was going to be some cool thing. I don't know why. But actually gardening came first, and it was just a hobby thing. Boredom. Like I was just bored, and I was like, my friend was like, hey, you should plant some of these. And I'm like, okay. So once I started planting things, I was like, oh, this is a lot easier than what I assumed.
Right.
So yeah, it was literally just like, there's nothing to do. I need a hobby. And then from then on, as life continued on, me and him, we got to a place where we're like, you know what? Our grocery bill is a little much. Like, let's take this hobby to another level, because now we're responsible for our kids' health. Our health, our family. We are buying groceries, and then I started paying more attention to the labels of the food, and especially our son. Our son is very sensitive to things like dyes and like high intake of sugar. He just bouncing off the walls. So so it's like we started being more health conscious. Our daughter at one point had a dairy allergy, and God healed her from that. Praise God. And she had other issues, and she's completely fine now. We look at food a whole nother way now. It's like the difference. It's like there's no compare. It's crazy how much better it is when you grow your own food and, put forth that full effort into that.
Yeah. Right. And like she said, I mean, she kind of started it all with the gardening and stuff. And for me, it was kind of like a no-brainer type of thing. She was like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Why not? Then we're like, wait, we can have our own eggs? Oh, okay. That makes sense. I'm like, sure, let's do that. I mean, she's always been kind of like the ideal person. So she's like, hey, let's do this. And then I'm the kind of like, okay, let's get it done type of person. So she'll always pitch the idea, and then I'm like, okay, let's run with it and let's get it done.
Yeah. And my family, his mom more so. He had a grandmother who gardened, and his mom took over gardening and food preserving, things like that. But I didn't have any of that. My family's from New York. Like, cement is as far as you get, like, to garden. I remember when we moved to I grew up kind of more in New Jersey, and even then my mom went as far as growing hostas, and that was because the beds were like, there was nothing there, so she needed something to be there. So when we started doing all of these things, I was like, I want my family to follow along. Like, I want them to see that this is cool to me. So I know it's going to be cool to them. Like, I didn't grow up seeing this. And so that's kind of where the YouTube thing started. It was 100% for our family to kind of check it out and see what we were doing. And then I noticed that people started following us. And I was like, people care. Like,
ain't that funny? It's always funny, right? Like, that's how we started here. I just started at YouTube to document, like what we did here and watch the kids kind of grow up. I can go back and watch those videos, and it just kind of evolved into people coming and learning from it, right? And then it's really cool though to be able to experience that. So here's a question for you. So my wife, I started the whole chicken thing, right? So her dad grew, always raised chickens and stuff when they were growing up. She didn't really like the chickens and the turkeys and stuff that he had. In 2020, even before then, we had ducks, before, and we raised them at our old place. And then we moved here. We got chickens because it was more conducive for chickens here. And I started taking on more of the role of the garden. Now she's more of the chicken lady, right? And so do you guys notice that you guys do different things, that you guys have like certain things that you fall in line more with? Like, she's became the chicken person, whereas and the bird person, she can tell you all sorts of things about the birds. Whereas I'm just like, okay, they're chickens. Here's some feed. See y'all later. I'm gone. I can tell you more about the garden. Do you guys have that kind of relationship there on y'all's homestead where one of y'all take care of more than the other?
He is like the king of he's the spokesman for the honey-do list, I think. Like literally, we'll be talking and I'm just like, wow, look how cool this looks. Wouldn't that be cool in the backyard? And he's like,
That's funny.
like, do you want that in the backyard? Like, he's like, that does look pretty cool. And then we'll watch a couple things and then he'll do it. But what's funny is he's much more motivated than I am. Yeah. So it's like, I'm the person that will have 100 things in my Amazon save for later. He has nothing in his save for later. Like it's either you click and buy or that's it. So it's like, I'll have these ideas. And if I voice them, he's like, all right, let's do it. And I'm just like, wait, I'm not sure.
Right.
So he's much more motivated to do that. Like he's the builder. And like, if we're speaking to someone about things, like let's say when we got into raising rabbits, like I can tell you all the things about the rabbits, but when it comes to how did you guys build your structure? Like, what did you think? I'm like,
right.
Yeah. So that's kind of, honestly, I would have to say she's more of like the wealth of knowledge as when it comes to gardening and taking care of what the animals are and stuff. But when it comes to the processing or the butchering or the building, all that stuff, that's kind of where I come in. People are like, oh, well, what do you do? I'm like, oh, let me show you real quick. Or, hey, this is what it is. So as far as like chicken, she loves ducks. She loves the chickens. Mm-hmm. She loves the garden. She's like a wealth of knowledge and all that stuff. Like she said, I'm kind of just the get it done guy around the house.
That's funny though, but that's good though that you guys have that still it's the same kind of thing we have here, right? Yeah. One of us know more or does more on one end or the other, because that's what we are. We're helpmates, right? Yep. At the end of the day, we're truly helpmates for one another, and it works out. And so you got a good wealth of knowledge then about the animals. So, and we're going to talk to him here in a second then about how he builds the stuff. So what are your favorite animals and why?
Okay. So as funny as it is, I'm like obsessed with the ducks now. Like I thought that chickens was going to be my thing. And then we got the rabbits, and the rabbits are so cute, and they're we raise Tamuk composites. So they're a load of color. Like it's like a box of chocolates when they have babies.
Oh, that's cool.
But I thought I was going to be into that. And then the ducks came and I'm like, they're the best. Like I love the ducks. They're so fun. Just watch, like I could sit outside, like literally, I need to take a picture for our YouTube. There's like our family chairs directly at the chickens and the ducks. And we will just sit outside and just watch them because it's just like so fun. And what's crazy is I prefer the Muscovy duck meat over the rabbits and probably even the chickens. I think it's delicious. And
really?
It's the craziest thing. And it's like, the only thing I can compare it kind of to is almost like beef. It's so weird. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It really is.
We just got Muscovy chicks. Well, ducklings, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they're called because they're not ducks, supposedly, right? They're
like a
I don't
turkey
get
hybrid
that.
thing.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Like
Muscovies.
Yeah.
They're like they're a duck, but they're more like along geese.
Okay.
They're not mallard derived.
Okay.
You know, so but they have the genetic coding is almost there. I forget like kind of what the thing is, but yeah, they're pretty much more geese. But yeah, they just trip me out. I don't know. It's like they're quiet.
Yeah.
They don't make noise besides a little hiss here and there.
Right.
I mean, the mom will kind of squeal if she's like broody and you're too close. But other than that, like you would never get like if you were outside of our house in the front yard, you would never know we had animals.
That's crazy.
Like, but we just got turkeys.
So the turkeys.
So if our dog annoys them, then they'll be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right. That's funny. So,
but other than that, they're pretty quiet too. I mean, you would never know. So it's kind of cool for us because we get to have the fun with, you know, having ducks, but not having to deal with the quacking all day.
Right.
We had Welsh Harlequin where we've been slowly
we got those.
Yeah, we've been slowly getting rid of them. We liked them, but like I said, it's the noise more. I don't want to. We're more in city, like close to city, like we're in city limits. So it's like I don't want to bother anyone, even though we don't really have neighbors. I still like we don't know. Everything's growing so fast. I don't like being on the radar, like at all. Like as far as like my house and what's in my house. So we're like the Muscovy ducks work good. The meat is delicious. Yep. They're amazing moms. They hatch out all their ducklings. Like we've had them broody and they just hatch them out and they're amazing moms. Like she was just taking them all around. I thought she was going to beat up the Drake. The Drake got close to the ducklings and she was not playing around. Like, and he backed away. He was like, all right, you're good.
See, and well, I'm glad to hear this. And here's why, because like I said, we just got a few of the ducklings or whatever for the Muscovies. We have the Welsh Harlequins. We've had a couple other ones out there, some, you know, the Swedish and stuff. And we've got some crosses that we've done with them and everything. They do quack a lot. They're very, very messy. Like they all the time in the water. Muscovies don't like a lot of water, right? They don't like to get in the water as much as like
ours will swim in the water, but they're definitely not as messy as the Welsh Harlequin at all. Like,
and it's because we have the pond. So if the pond, because I built a pond for the ducks.
Right.
So if there was no pond there, they probably wouldn't be in as much.
They'll just be pretty much they do take a little bath. Like we had a little water thing for the moms when they're broody. They'll take a bath every now and again and kind of stick their head in. But I mean, other than that, the Muscovies are much more, and they eat less too. Yeah. Because they're more foraging. They really like to forage. So we'll catch them kind of just walking around and, you know, they'll be eating the bugs. Like they love mosquitoes.
Yep.
They will be sitting there eating the mosquitoes. They love like little flying insects. So they'll eat, but I mean, they forage way more than the Welsh Harlequin and the chickens.
That's awesome. Now, I have problems out of my geese, out of the turkey, and out of my ducks eating my plants. And last week I was told that it's because the bugs are on the plants and the eggs are on the plants that they're eating the leaf on my plants, right?
That could be that.
Do you guys see any kind of pressure from your ducks eating any of your plants, or do you guys not let them out much?
So what's so funny, I'm glad you asked that question. Our main reason why we got Muscovy ducks was because they're good at foraging, and I was like, let's do an experiment. I was like, you know, because when it gets to like July, that's when like squash bugs and everything are like full blast. So we're like, let's put them in the garden, see how they, you know, do their thing in there, and we'll see, you know, where the losses are. So we put them in the garden. They literally ate like all the bugs, right? They ate all. Right. But I left them in too long because once they run out of the bigger bugs that they can kind of see, they'll definitely eat your garden. Yeah. Like so it's like more of like, okay, well, I did my job. What am I going to do now? So they
Boredom.
Yeah. So from what I've seen, because we did it like twice. So put them in there when it's really bad, let them eat the bugs, watch them. Once you start seeing them chipping like more at the greens, take them out.
Okay. Yeah. That's good information. That's very good information because like I said, mine had this very long run and they will stick their necks out as far as they can to nip at the leaves. And I keep having to make the run narrow. The reason why the run is so narrow is we have these black vultures here that swoop down and hit them. And I was like, okay, the only way I can stop them, because they were swooping in, hitting them, and then trying to lift them out. And sometimes they would lift them out. So I said, well, if I make it narrower, longer and narrower, and then let them go into the woods, gives them cover as well, I can avoid them diving in. Well, they still try to dive in, even though it's narrow, but they abort the mission, I guess, because they're like, oh, whoa, there's not enough room to get out, you know. But the birds still, you know, reach through and grab my plants and stuff. So I was like, well, maybe I make it more narrow, keep the birds away. And I'm like, well, I can't keep doing this. So we was trying to figure out a way to, you know, work in harmony with everything, right? You know, because I know they want to eat the bugs. I want them to eat the bugs, you know what I mean? But I can't have them eat my plants. And so it's this balance of trying to figure out what works here and stuff. So I'm really glad you guys talked about Muscovies, because like I said, we got those 2 in there, and hopefully they'll turn out to be a male and a female, or at least 2 females, and I can buy a male because they're pretty easy to find. So you built a pond for these ducks. How did you go about doing that?
Well, like she said, we started with a water trough, and we realized that we're changing it out all the time. We're dumping it out. I mean, it was a pain because we had Welsh Harlequin and Muscovy, so it just got a nuisance. So we were looking at a lot of self-sufficient stuff and things that would be less work. That way we're not out there wasting a lot of water and going through all this. I'm like, if we're trying to get more self-sufficient, more cutting budget and stuff, I'm like, what's our next thing? A pond. I'm like, okay, so what can we do? So I literally went out in the back of our yard where the ducks were, and I looked at an area, and I'm like, okay, this would be an awesome area. So I just researched pond stuff. So we have a video on our YouTube, but we did a pond liner, a filter, a pump, all the good stuff.
Right.
I ended up, I think overall it's like a 10 by 13 kind of oval pond.
Okay.
I did like a 3-shelf tier. So the first shelf is like a foot deep. The next shelf is 2, and then the bottom is 3 foot.
Okay.
And I actually made one area of it like a beach. So it's like a shallow going into. So that way the chickens can go down and drink in it. The ducks can get in easily, and all of that. So that's basically what I did. I just dug it out by hand and went out there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, like let's kind of talk about that a little bit more, because so you dig it out by hand. You got the filtration system in. You got a liner in it. Like in a drought season, do you think it would go dry? How are you getting more water in, or do you got to fill it up any, or?
We'll top it off.
We'll top it off, but I think if, let's just say we hit a drought and we were living completely off grid and we only had rainwater and we were running out of rainwater, it would probably drop a little bit due to water and evaporation, of course. But I don't think it would dry out completely.
And we'd have the water bins as well, because we harvest rainwater with IBC totes.
That's what we do here. Yeah.
So I mean, if it was to get to a situation where we couldn't use our hose, I mean, we could use that water as well. But another thing about the pond is the filter. We have to clean the filter probably once a week, and we could, because it's ducks. Like
right.
The ducks, the poop is just, it'll turn into sludge. And So I mean, that's the reality with ducks. But at the end of the day, we clean the filter once a week, and we actually dump the pond probably once a month. No, like a little bit more than that. Yeah,
I mean, we've only done it completely once since we built it.
But we want to do it again, so it's been like once. So I'm thinking once a month. So that water is not a complete waste, though. I mean, it's full of terrible
nutrients.
Stuff for them to drink, but it's great stuff to reuse for the garden and the like. We're in a drought right now, like severely. Like it hasn't rained a good rain since like June.
Yeah, like 2 months.
So when we dumped the pond, because the filter system
has an outlet for watering your garden, so it's specifically
that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I can hook a hose up to the filter, turn it on that feature, turn the pump on, and literally pump it wherever I want it. So I can go right to the garden. I can water our plants with it, whatever features we need.
But we didn't end up doing that this time. We kind of did it around the pond because our animals need grass.
Yep.
So it's like, we were like, we just let it kind of go. And I mean, it is so green around the pond, you know, and it's just like, at the end of the day, yes, we dump the pond and then have to refill it. But where is that water going? Like, you know, it's being reused. And he ended up going in there and like kind of taking a shovel and a bucket and getting the sludge from the bottom down. But when you think about it, it's like we were refilling their water troughs every day. Right. Every single day. Yep. So if you're telling me like clean the filter, hose down the filter once a week, maybe drain the pond once a month, it is worth every ounce of work that we've done to do that.
I need you to talk to my wife.
Yeah.
Because I've been dying to put a pond in. She's like, no, the kids will get in it. They'll fall in it. No, you know, I'm like, what? Okay. So they're big enough they can swim now. You know, it's no big deal. I do got a question. Have y'all ever thought about putting fish in there to eat the poo out, but they would still poo? You still have the nutrients in there. It just wouldn't be duck poo.
We actually do have fish.
Yeah, we did for a little. We had a couple koi and a few goldfish.
The goldfish survived.
Yeah, the goldfish are still in there. There was a time where we had a bunch of algae build up.
Right.
So I was trying to fight that with like algicide and all this stuff. I ended up killing our koi fish because I walked out there one day and the chickens were eating it.
Right.
Like 2 big koi fish that was like a good size. I'm like, oh man.
And then
with the algae, even if you buy like the natural algae stuff, if you use too much,
you'll kill them.
You'll just kill. And the reason why is it'll take the oxygen to prevent the algae. It takes the oxygen from the water.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily terrible, but it will take the oxygen that the fish need.
Yeah.
Right.
So you'll kill the fish. So we're like, we pretty much talked and we're like, we're not using anything else in the pond.
Yeah.
The algae is happening. Really, it's happening because it's in full sun.
Yep.
And it is Texas. And it's like 1,000 degrees, and you know, like it's so hot. And then we know why the algae is happening. It's just full sun. Like that'll happen with anything. Yeah. But our first plan was to put plants in the pond. The Welsh Harlequin mostly, they ate them all. Like I mean them all. We put them in there, got them all ready.
Yep.
And the next day, it was
gone.
all gone.
Like
and
$60 worth of plants.
So I was telling him, and if you look up pond plants, like they're costly. Yeah. Like they really are. I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous. Like, well, I've been looking for like somebody with a pond that was gonna allow me to go over there and kind of dig some up. I kind of stopped looking for a while, but I need to go back into that. But I'm planning on getting mature plants. I think that was partly the problem too.
Yeah, right.
We got like smaller plants, and then I mean that's just asking for the ducks to kind of. So if they're more mature, I'm thinking maybe that'll work more. But that will be the best and most ideal situation for the pond to have established plants in there and filtration system going on. That was the main plan.
Have you guys watched The Pond Guy?
I'm pretty sure we have.
I'm pretty sure I've seen a few of his episodes and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he goes sometimes. He don't always go in depth, but sometimes he does about that stuff. But a couple of things like that I've seen him do is he'll either put in waterfalls to kind of help, you know, keep that oxygen flow in there, or he'll put in one of the, you know, those.
The aerator or
where it just like spews the water up, you know, out of the middle of it. And you know, if you guys had something like that, do you think then it would be safe to use the algae stuff?
See,
I have a waterfall.
We have a waterfall. I really just think he put too much. Like I think he was just kind of like, oh, this is bad, and like put a little bit too much, and then
we tend to do that, don't we?
Yeah. You know, I mean,
I'm like, this little bit ain't gonna hurt.
Right.
What's so funny is every single algae thing, not good, natural, whatever. Every single one is very specific on how much you have to use and doing the math and making sure, you know. So it's like. You know,
right?
I'm like, it said about a tablespoon. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's about right.
Hey,
And then we find these fish. What was really sad is the fish grew so
They were
fast.
big.
They were thriving in that pond. We're watching our ducks eat these huge koi fish. They're just tearing it up. And I'm like,
oh no.
Yeah.
That's so bad.
and the waterfall is like the preferred where the chickens love to drink.
Yeah.
Oh
The
yeah.
chickens
They
will
nip at the
Yes.
the splashes, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, this makes such a difference because we do not have to fill any waters
Yep.
except for the turkeys. And that's because we don't have the turkeys with our main flock
Right.
yet. They're still fairly new to us. So we haven't combined them yet.
Yeah.
So we're making sure everything's good. So we do have to fill their stuff up. But as far as the chickens and the ducks, just imagine not having to fill water.
I would be over thrilled just to not have to because every day it's 3 swimming pools. Because what we got is we went and got the little swimming pools for kids, right?
Yep.
And every day you go out there, you have to dump it and spray it and clean it out. And it's just like, man, this takes up 30 minutes every day to do this. I'm so fed up. So I got smart one day, right? I mean, I think me and you, we must, Nathan, me and you, we must have watched like Tim the Toolman Taylor when we was kids. Right?
Definitely.
Right. So, because I'm like, I got an idea. I was like, I'll stop this from happening. So I get this green chicken wire. Well, it's not chicken wire. It's the soft plastic, right? Chicken fence.
Yeah.
And I zip tie it to the pool because I'm like, they can stick their heads in, they can get the water, but they can't get in. Then entered the geese that weigh a lot. And they just sit on it and keep paddling like this and dipping their head in it until they bust the netting down. And so that didn't work, So then I'm sitting there back at spraying it, and I'm like, oh, what do I got to do to get rid of, I got to think of something. But the pond would definitely solve that problem because if you think 7 days out of the week, 30 minutes a day to clean and water those 3 pools. And it's not even, even though there's 3 of them and they're good size and they're pretty level, when they get in there and splash and carry on, technically within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I could go back, spray them all out again and clean them out again because they've just made them filthy.
Yeah.
So it only would make sense to have that pond in place if you're going to have, the water birds, because then they can splash, they can play, they can be themselves. They're not irritating you. Because you're sitting there cleaning it, and then as you're cleaning it, it's going to appear dirty again, right? And it would just make a better environment for everybody. You as the homesteader, them as the animals that you're in charge of. I think it just makes sense. So I definitely want to try to get something like that.
And since we've had the pond, we've taken 2 vacations.
Yep.
And because we can leave.
Right.
Knowing that worst case scenario, they run out of food, right?
Right.
But they're foraging. They're natural foragers. So their instinct's going to kick in. They're going to dig for bugs. They're going to eat the grass. The main priority when you leave for vacation is water. You're like, they need water. I need to call somebody. They need to go to my house. I need to teach them how to do this and this. We were on vacation and the worst of our concern was like, how hot is it in Texas? But at the end of the day, they had shade. So it's like, we didn't have to worry about water. Like, that was like the biggest thing. That right there was worth it all day.
Yeah, and the water in the pond stays cooler because it's a bigger body of water. Mm-hmm. So you're not worried about, especially for us, like she said, we were 105 to 110 for like weeks on end. So our pond water was way cooler than it would have been if it was in a metal tin or one of those thin plastic ones.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
And cleaning the filter out, if I do it really well, I would say it takes me an hour. So an hour a week to clean the filter, and then I'm done. It's over. Versus... Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Versus 30, like you said, 30 minutes a day. That right there, you're already saving time in every single day.
And that's 30 minutes a day is only if, like he said, if let's say you cleaned it, everything's good, you go back outside and one of them just decided to just pull all the bedding into the water or all the dirt into the water, and you're sitting there and you're just like, I have to clean this again.
Yep.
Because that happens.
It does.
Totally happens.
Yep. And you sit there and you wonder, Like, why did you do that? You know, like what possessed you to do this? You know, it does not make sense. You know, I got a turkey, and she will literally walk over there and either try to lay an egg in the pool, or if she don't lay the egg in the pool, she poops in the pool. And it's like, you got all this space to poop, lay egg, whatever, and you want to do it in a pool. I don't.
Well, that's our like
the
when I cleaned the pond out this last time and I drained it and scooped, I found 3, if not 4 eggs at the bottom of the pond.
What makes him think to do that?
But it's only the Welsh.
That's it.
I'm like, why are like the Welsh Harlequin? I don't know what's up. I don't know if it's just ours.
No,
they
it's
will
not.
literally just be walking, plop. I'm like, and like the Muscovies, that is one thing about the Muscovies. Yep. They lay in their nest.
They'll make a nest and
they make it and they lay there forever. We know who laid it. We know, you know, we just the Welsh Harlequin, it's like legit an egg hunt. Like I'm like,
yeah.
So our Welsh, we had the oldest Welsh Harlequin we had. We named her Looney because she was legit loony, and we went out there and we were looking for her and we couldn't find her, and we were like, oh my gosh. One of the birds must have snuck in. One of them black vultures must have snuck in and got her. And so the next day we go out and we're looking and can't find her. And I said, that bird is in here because I was outside grilling and it was out here quacking and laying eggs and stuff. I know it's here somewhere. I was like, there's nothing that got it that fast at dark time because I was grilling, you know, towards evening. It was like 7:30 or something. I knew it had to be there. So we had looked already again that morning and couldn't find it. And I just wasn't going to give up. And so I start looking all around the side of the house because there's an IBC tote there. I had a pallet laid up against the house. The door that goes underneath the house was there. And I'm thinking maybe she figured out a way to sneak in there and the wind blew it shut. And we didn't know, you know, and we have steps there on the back side. So I'm like, maybe she's under the steps, like buried up in the very front of the step where we can't see. She's right there in the pallets. And I'm like, we walked by her 1,000 times. She never moved or anything. She had a nest there. And she would lay eggs and roll them. And we weren't paying no attention. But she had laid them eggs and rolled them up through there. Went and got a scrub brush that was in the shape of an egg. Put it in the nest too. Oh, yeah. Yeah. She had never went broody before, ever. And all of a sudden, she decided she was going to go broody, and she rolled everybody's eggs up there. I mean, we found chicken eggs, duck eggs, everything. And I'm like, well, I guess, you know. And so that's when we named her Looney. We were leaving her there. We weren't bothering her. And we don't know what happened. She'd been on the eggs for probably 2 weeks, somewhere around there, 2.5. We went out there one day, and she's up off the eggs, and she's, you know how they start doing their neck sideways and stuff. And I'm like, what's wrong? Go over, and why are you up off your nest? You know, go over to the nest. It's tore all to pieces. I mean, it's just shredded. She's the only duck out. And I'm like, well, now, how did this happen? You know, still don't know what happened or what, you know, whatever. I think she destroyed the nest and just got up and was tired of it, or wanted to roll her eggs somewhere else, or, you know, whatever they do. But anyway, she cracked a bunch of them. It was super cold because that was December when she done it. Mm-hmm. And it was right, I think it was either right at the time we got that Arctic blast or right after. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was like very cold outside. And I grabbed the eggs up. I mean, they were cold, but I grabbed them up, brought them inside, stuck them in the incubator. And I think out of 10 of them that were there, 6 of them hatched.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got blessed with that because I didn't think any of them would hatch. But yeah, she was just legit crazy. She just would lay eggs. Like you said, she'd just be walking and lay it. And then come back later and pick it up and roll it across the yard, I guess, to that nest. And she rolled everybody else's eggs up there. And then I don't know, I guess what happened, I guess a fox had come in. When I let them all into the woods, I cut the fence that's there against the property line so that all the birds could go into the wood line there, because it's literally nothing but woods, and there's a stream at the bottom of the hill. They can all go down there and play and stuff. And so, or if they wanted to, they very rarely do. But anyways, we was over there, and she had made a nest over there, and the nest was gone, you know, like 2-3 days after, but she got gone too. So I don't know where she went. I don't know. Like, we have a whole flock of guineas out here, Like they roosted in the trees one night, a storm came, the next morning they were all gone. It's like, I think there was 10 of them that are gone, like just vanished.
Wow.
So I don't know if a fox got them or what, but I would think if a fox was coming in and getting stuff actively, he would keep coming back until there wasn't nothing left.
Yeah.
And, they're like several ducks got gone, the guineas got gone. And I think what they've done is the ducks went to the bottom of the hill, found the stream, kept going until they found the bigger stream, and they're probably living in Jumping Branch somewhere, bothering somebody else now. And the guineas are probably populating all the hay fields. So there's going to be a lot of food around here if anything bad happens. So
wow.
So you got the rabbits. Your Muscovies are your favorite birds. What do you like about the rabbits?
Well, it's a good meat source, and their nutrition's good, and they're a quick turnaround. The only thing we both struggle with the rabbits is we're in Texas, and it's hot. I think that's the biggest thing with the rabbit. I hate seeing them panting. Like
stretched out.
I hate it.
Yep.
I hate watching them look like that. Like, and we have a breed that was actually created here in Texas A&M.
Okay.
So they are one of the most heat tolerant rabbits you can get.
Yeah.
They really are. They have withstood this 106, 105, with bare minimum help.
Right.
But they still look so sad. Like, I hate just like even walking by them, and they're just looking at me like, why do you do this to me?
Have you ever put big box fans on them?
Like well, we had little cage fans, and we do like we did the frozen water bottles, like freezing. But still, I'm just like, I don't like that. I want our animals to be as happy as possible,
right? As comfortable as we are.
Even the ones we eat, I just want them to live like a happy life. Like we just recently, we started with 2 boys and 3 girls with the rabbits, and one of our boys and one of our girls have pretty much retired. Like she used to have like 13 rabbits. Like that's how big her litters were.
Yeah. And
she started going from 13 to like 3. So she's getting older. She's like 5.
Oh,
so,
okay.
You know what? Let's retire her. And I told him when we got rabbits, I was like, and we told the kids, we were like, the ones that we start with are breeders. We will retire them. They will be able to live the rest of their life out on the ground. They did so much for us, etc.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Let's just put them on the ground. Let's put them with the chickens and ducks and see what happens. Because where we are, we're more urban, kind of. Not even really urban, but we have a fence, a 6-foot fence.
Right.
And then we have the electric fence. We don't get too many predators, except it's like a skunk or a possum. We're not getting coyotes. So so we ended up putting them in there. We created like these little rabbit huts, like with just branches, like big stumps and logs. And we created these little like just piles pretty much to where they can go in if they need, shade or whatever. Yeah. So they are thriving with our ducks and our chickens, like thriving. They'll walk around with them. They'll eat the grass, and they're running and doing all this stuff. And they both have 2 separate burrows. He has one under these logs over here, and she has one on the other side. And like,
that's cool.
When I see them living like that, I'm like, I was like, there's a difference. I look to my left and I see these rabbits just living their life. And then I look to my right and they're like, help me. Like,
I was going to ask you, have you guys ever tried the community rabbiting? Where
we haven't. But I've seen it, the colonies.
Yeah.
We've discussed it. We just never went into it because we weren't sure how long we were going to be doing the rabbit thing. That was kind of our intro.
Yeah. Well, that and property size too.
Yeah.
We're limited on space. We have like half an acre. So, we had our chickens, our ducks, and now we just got turkeys. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to commit to a chunk of property for the rabbits.
We could, but he built this really big, nice rabbit hutch in the beginning. So it's like when you spend all your time, your effort
Right.
building something nice, and we look at it sometimes and we're like, I know me for sure. I'm like, even if we wanted to like do something else there, it's like, where would we put this really nice, ginormous hutch?
Yeah,
It's like
massive.
we've been thinking, and I'm like, if we got rid of our rabbits altogether, let's say we just moved on to just living off ducks, turkeys, chickens. If we got rid of them, it's like it was such a big project that we would have to repurpose that somehow. We would have to like make that a chicken brooder for the babies or for the chicks or something, because it's like sometimes some projects you put so much effort into that it's like, I'm not moving that at all.
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little quick example of what I did. So when we started breeding rabbits at our old property, and like I said, when we moved over here, we didn't take anything with us. We got rid of everything. We come over here with just us and our 2 kids at the time. And then we bought rabbits that summer in 2018. And I had watched a video about, the colony rabbits, right? And so I built a hutch, had an upstairs and a downstairs, right? And they could go up the little ramp, go up, and that was where I was like, oh, they'll have kids up there, and everything will be good, and and worry about nothing. And then, I left the bottom open and it was setting flat on the ground, and they started digging. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. They're digging, they're having fun. Well, we're like, they went under and you would barely see them. And it's like, what are they doing under there? And then they would fill it up, the bottom full of dirt. And I would take wheelbarrow fulls of dirt out. And I'm like, where's all this dirt coming from? And then all of a sudden my son runs in and says, there's a baby rabbit in the cage. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no. And so we go out there, and sure enough, she had went down there and had a whole litter of rabbits underground, and they're, big enough that their eyes are open. They're big enough to walk around and, do their thing. And they're coming up out of there. And I'm like, this is cool. This is great. This is how God meant for them to live, and I'm all excited. They don't get hot. They don't get cold in the wintertime. Right. So I'm excited, and I'm thinking this is wonderful. I measure the burrow. It was longer than a 25-foot long tape. Right. And I'm like, wow, they got a really great home under there, and then things started happening. Like they started burrowing out and coming out of there. And then you would block that off. You'd dig it out a little bit, put rabbit wire down, right? Bury the rabbit wire, so they can't dig back through it. And then more litters. And then you couldn't get a hold of the litters. So then you had to figure out how to catch the litters. Like I literally had this gate that was, I would watch all the babies come up into the hutch, and I had a gate that I shut off the tunnel, right? And I would shut the tunnel off, and they'd all be up there, and we'd catch them all, and we'd take, because you can't leave them wild, because if you don't touch them and play with them, they get buck wild.
Yeah.
And so, we had to get this whole system. Well, then when our last son was born, we spent 5 months in the NICU, and my wife's mom and dad was up here, and they didn't really know all the things with the rabbits and stuff. And there was literally tons of rabbits, like 30, 40 rabbits in the yard everywhere. We didn't have a gate. We didn't have fence at the time. It was wide open. The neighbors were getting them, catching them, and selling them. Okay. Yeah. Like there was so many rabbits. They were taking them, putting them on Facebook and selling them. Like, look at these beautiful little bunnies we caught. Like, yeah, they're my rabbits. Like, why didn't you put them back? I know they're getting out, but like, can we work together? You know what I mean? Like, we got to find the hole. Well, I thought I had all the holes shut off in the yard. I came home one day, shut off all the holes I could find in the yard, got them all back in there. I didn't know they had dug a burrow some 75 feet away in the woods, okay, that I didn't know. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, is that a rabbit? What is that? That is a rabbit. I just put that one in there because there was only one that looked like that one particular one, right? And I'm like, where did you come from? And then sure enough, I go over there, and there's a mound of dirt, and he just right out. Well, here comes the rest of the cavalry out one at a time, and I'm sitting there. No, you got to go back in the hole. And I'm trying to shut it off. Oh yeah, it was miserable, but it is a lot of fun if you can contain it. And so if I had to go back and do this over again, which my wife I don't think will let me, Even though we have rabbits, I don't think she's going to allow me to do it like that anymore. But if I could, I think what I would do is I would go a 10-foot perimeter around that hutch, and I would dig down, like 3 or 4 foot, because rabbits do not dig really, really deep. Correct. They dig like, a foot and a half down, and a lot of different way, Mm-hmm. So I think what I would do is I would do like a 10-foot perimeter around their hutch, go down 3 foot, or however tall I could find rabbit wire, even if it was 4 foot, and I would just put a line of rabbit wire around that, bury it, vertical. That way it would be a lot of digging to go under that. And I don't think they would do it. But I think if my wife would let me, that would be my next project, would be to do that and let them live like that again. Because again, it gets really hot here in the summertime too. And it gets really cold in the wintertime. It's hard to breed rabbits when it's either very cold or very hot, you know what I mean? Because you're putting the mothers through a lot of stress then. And it's really, in my mind, it's just not been a very good time to breed rabbits. I mean, I've not bred we've got four or five females out there, and I've not bred them since last spring. It's just not been conducive.
We do the same thing. We don't breed them in the heat. Yeah. Because first of all, let's say they do manage to have a litter in the heat and they grow out. They're not going to be near the weight that you want. Yeah, it's almost a waste of feed and a waste of time. Because it's like they're hot. They're not going to be wanting to eat all this food.
Going back to the original, another part of the reason why we got rabbits was because their poop was great fertilizer for the garden.
Right.
Absolutely. So, we collected it and used that for the garden a lot as well.
I mean, that's all we were using at one point was just the rabbit manure, and everything was going really well. And that was another reason why we were always going to keep our breeders until they passed was, we'll have fertilizer for, at all times and even in different areas where our lawn is,
because the hutches,
it makes a difference.
Yeah, the hutches I built were like mansions compared to some of the ones I've seen. I mean, ours was 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot square. Right. I mean, it was a huge hutch for one rabbit. Yep. So, I was like, if we're going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So that way they have room to run around in and stuff. So,
and like I said, it's come into handy for other things too. Yeah. Like, I mean, if we're selling chickens or something, like, I'm not going to have somebody come to my house and us be chasing chickens. Like, it's bad luck. Like, so we'll get them all together, put them in a hutch. And then when the person comes, we can just grab them from there and do that. It's come in handy a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. So you guys are raising the rabbits, you're eating the rabbits. How many rabbits? Because here's the thing here. That's what I got rabbits for. But guess how many we've ate?
I don't know. None.
Yeah.
Man, we've eaten quite a bit actually.
Well,
Listen, I have literally probably bred, I would say close to 500-600 rabbits, or if not more. And we've ate none of them.
Why? Where do they go? What do you do?
See y'all, take them Royal King, sell them, whatever, you're just not going to get these they won't let, like, they see this cute fluffy rabbit and that's it. Oh, it's cute. It's fluffy. I want to, and it's like, I'm looking at it like, man, I want to eat that,
See, you know what? That was another thing before we even started, we sat our kids down and we're like, the ones that we're buying now, the breeders, the mommies and the daddies, we will never eat them. Right. I was like, this is family. These are our friends. These are our pets.
Right.
Anything else, that's food. Right. So I think because we talk to our kids that way, it's like they became super close with the breeders than the babies.
Right.
Even though they did play with the babies a lot, but they knew there was a line.
Yeah.
There was a line. And I think it helped a lot when they first tasted, and saw, it doesn't always look like a super cute, fluffy thing. Like this is meat. Like this is, and then it kind of like put a switch on a couple of our kids because they're just like, wait, this is good. Like this is food, this is food. So it's funny because kids are so different, you know. So it's like we had like 2 of them that were like, and then we had, you know, we had one of them in particular. I was actually, because if we have super nice rabbits, like some, like, you know, you'll have a litter and there's like 1 or 2 that are just super sweet. And they're like, hi, how you doing? Like, love me.
Come to you, you know?
Yes. I'll usually I'll sell those as pets or breeders or something. So I was doing a Facebook Live and I was kind of just, you know, showing people the rabbits. And I was like, look, and they're super cute. And my daughter's like, this one's teriyaki. And this one is.
That's funny.
I'm like, these are the pets. Like, putting it.
That's funny.
Naming them after the food she wanted to eat.
Because that helped her for some odd reason. That was like this thing that helped her mind if she named them. We had like chocolate and honey and, you know, like Milky Way, different things, you know.
That's funny.
It was so funny. You know, and we did sell some as breeders a few times. We sold some as pets a few times. But I've noticed, like, if you're going to, like, this is with us, like, if you're going to go into something, you know, you've got to go hard in it. Because, like, it's like, you're not just going to be like, hey, look at these rabbits, buy them. I had to really do a lot of research and, like, be like, look, you can have this rabbit as a pet. This is how people take care of them in the home. This is how they're litter trained. This is how you put them. This is the wire cables you to use to cover your cables and things like that. So I feel like the more you dig into what you're trying to do, it's like the more people are more accepting and understand. They're like, oh wait, so yeah, I would love one. That would be awesome, you know. And we're also picky. I don't just give my animals to anybody. Like, I really don't. Because I don't mind people eating animals, because we eat animals, obviously. But some people are you just know it's shady. Like, something is going on. It's just some shady situations. You just got to feel the spirit in that. Sometimes I literally will feel the spirit just being like, no.
Right.
And then I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. Like,
and we even tell people, like, when we sold them the rabbits and stuff, we're like, hey, listen, if you can't care for this animal and take care of it the way you're supposed to, just bring it back. We'll take it back free of charge. Just come drop it off. We'll handle it from there.
We've had people bring it back. We've had people bring rabbits back and bring all these little toys and all the fun stuff that they bought for them, you know, because the worst case, I don't want somebody being like, well, it's a rabbit, let's throw it outside, you know, it'll survive out there, you know. Just like, because the city will see that, like, anybody will see that, and they're like, we have a rabbit problem, and then they're going to start looking at the people who sell rabbits and breed rabbits, and then it's a big deal, and then that's how all these ordinances start, and that's how all these people get up for. I'm like, no, I'm just like, bring it back. Worst case, I can eat it. Like, it's just like,
that's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, people. I don't think people do much. I think it's more impulse, you know. Oh, look, it's cute, it's fluffy, I want it right now. I think that's why Rural King and places like that sell them can sell them. You know what I mean? Because it's, you know, it's the same thing with the chicks, right? Like, people go in there, they see it. Oh, it's a chick. Like this one lady, we were at Rural King, and this one lady and her son was like, yeah, he wants to buy one of these chickens. And the lady was like, well, you can't buy one, you have to buy 6 or something like that. And she was like, well, he just needs one. He's going to keep it in his bedroom. What would he need to keep it in the bedroom? And I'm like, first he needs a heat lamp and a tote or box or something to put it in, and some pine shavings. And you're going to need one of these trays for water, one of them for food, you know. And she's like, oh, okay. How much is all this going to cost? I'm like, well, it's $10 for this, $10 for that. The feed is like, you know, $16 a bag, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then the sales lady's like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I was going to sell these birds. And it's like, you were going to let her walk out of here with 6 chickens that she was going to raise in her son's bedroom.
Yeah.
You can't just do that. Like, you got to tell them, you know. And like, she walked away with no birds, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that other lady was going to box up 6 birds and say, here you go, send you on your way. You know, like, you weren't going to tell her she needed a heat lamp or any of that stuff, you know, like, you know. And I think that is a lot of businesses' faults. You know, they don't have somebody working back there that either is knowledgeable about it. I mean, that lady could have made a really good sale. She could have been like, okay, well, you have all the supplies that you need. You have your birds and this, that, and the other. Yeah, or even at least had a kit put together that says this is what you need when you buy chicks. You know what I mean? Like, and just left it at that. Like, just have a display up of what you need when you buy chicks and left it alone. But they don't. They sell these chicks. The chicks end up dying. The kids want more, so the parents go back and buy more. They can't figure out why they're dying. And the reason why they're dying is because you're not caring for them properly.
Right.
You have nothing there. And I think a lot of businesses drive and thrive on that. You know, they don't know nothing about the rabbits. They just see a fluffy rabbit. The kid wants it. They buy the rabbit. They take it home, and without any research or knowing anything about it. So I like how you guys are like, you know, like, oh, look, this is what you need to litter train the rabbit. And this is what you need to keep it inside and all this. That's great, because that's information that your customers need, right, to be able to thrive with rabbits. Because the thing that homesteaders, as homesteaders, that we don't want is people to have bad experiences with the rabbits or the ducks or chickens or anything, right? We don't want that. We want everybody to enjoy all of those things that we enjoy on whatever level they can do it on, right? So I love that you guys do that. And
I have a digital document for everything, like absolutely everything. Like, people will ask me questions like, so what do they need? And I'm like, okay, what's your email? And I'll just go to Google Documents. I created a document this long about everything you possibly need, and I'll just send it.
That's
and
awesome.
They're just like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, because it gets to the point where it's just like you said, you don't, first of all, people they don't have any respect for their jobs in general.
No.
Well, they just don't. They don't have respect for the company. I mean, I get it. You're an employee, but you have no respect for your boss. You have no respect for the people, you know. So when somebody comes and they want a chick, you know, you're like, okay, 6 chicks, whatever. Let's say that woman goes home with these. That company, oh no, they all died. I must have got bad chicks.
Yep.
You know, and then they're on Facebook, because we know how people are.
Yep.
They're on social media and they're talking bad about this company. And they're just like, they sold me all these dead chicks and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, all of that could have been avoided if you would have just did what you did, gave a little bit of information on what to do, and then somebody could have made a informed decision,
right,
whether or not they wanted to or not. And because we had just really started venturing into, we've been selling chickens, we've been selling ducks, we've been incubating our own eggs, we sell eggs, you know, different things. And I was like, if we're going to do this, I want to do it right. And that is more than just a financial blessing to us. It's like, I want to show these people that they can do it.
Yeah. Right, absolutely.
I want them to make an informed decision, though. Because this is any animal, even if you're eating them, it's a commitment. You know, this is something you're eating too. Like, I mean, a lot of the time we stopped buying a lot of things from the store. And that was because we made an informed decision. And we're like, you know what? If we're going to stop doing this, we're going to make a decision to replace this with something and raise something up. Or, you know, just, we made an informed decision based on the knowledge that we had about whatever product it is, etc. You know, but it comes with work.
Yep.
It comes with work, comes with effort, comes with time, comes with research. And, you know, you're never going to follow anything through if you don't have all the information.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Because even whenever we sell our eggs to people, she has like this little card that she gives them. And on that, it tells you, hey, if you're going to leave them on the counter, only leave them for this long. These are unwashed eggs. You know, if you want to put them in the fridge, put them in there. But once you do that, you can't, you know, it breaks down everything they need to know, because not everyone has bought farm fresh unwashed eggs.
Right.
I would have never even thought to have done that, though, because if somebody asked me for eggs, I'm always just like, yeah, here you go, you know, and I just hand them a carton. I would have never. That's really a good idea, because you're right. How many people know that how to take care of an egg that is unwashed, you know, because they're used to getting bleached out eggs that's been in the refrigerator for, you know, how long. Especially
if you have a rooster and they're fertile eggs.
Right.
So there comes in a whole nother factor. Yep. So you want to make sure you inform them so they don't crack open a, you know, half-formed chick because they left it on the counter or, you know. So, I mean, it's knowledge is power. And we have to understand that we want to, with us, like, we look for people who are going to set us up for success. Right. So we want to do the same. Like, I never want someone to be going and venturing into something and us put them out there and then they'll be like, man, I failed. This is horrible.
Right.
I would rather have a success story and them enjoy what they're doing and being like, wow, this was awesome. Thank y'all for helping. And be like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, this is why we do it, because we enjoy it as well.
And this goes right back around to your first question of like us starting the YouTube channel. We started with a purpose, like to show people, like, you know, what we're doing. And then when we started seeing that we had a following, and it was like 30 people, you know, we were just like, well, awesome, people care, you know, and we kind of switched gears and we're like, you know what, as we do these things, let's slow down the process and let's show these people how to do it. Or like, let's show them the mistakes that we've made so they don't make those same mistakes. Because like I said, we started this because we want our children to, you know, eat well, all of us to eat well. Our health is important. I don't know where everybody is as far as like going to the doctor. We don't. We just don't. I'm like, you know what? I want to take care of our bodies. I want us to be okay to where we will go if we absolutely have to. But I don't want to, you know? So it's like, if we can do it, I want other people to know you can do it too. And you can follow exactly how we did it. You asked us about the pond. We have a pond video, you know, because I know that somebody's going to come over our house one day and they're going to say, wow, that's an awesome idea. And then we're going to be like, here's a video for free. You can watch it. And as you're watching it, it's benefiting us as well because, you know, we're getting, you know, views, etc. You know, it's a beautiful system. You just, you have to do it with the right intentions. And I believe when you do anything with the right intentions, especially to help others, God will bless it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that 100%. You know, you brought up not going to the doctor, and I don't like going to the doctor. You know, my wife is like, hey, you know, Malachi or, you know, whoever, one of the kids, you know, they got a bump, they got a bruise. And it's like, yeah, be fine. You know, like I ain't going to the doctor unless I have to, right? Like I'm not letting my kids go because when you go there, you get pressured and stuff about doing things you don't want to do, taking things you don't want to take, right? And I don't necessarily trust Western medicine. You know what I mean? Like, all the different things. Like, I don't trust the food system. I don't trust the medicine system either. You know, and so to me, it's as important to have that food system in place so that I can use different things to help my body. Because I really believe that God put everything here for a purpose and a reason, and it's to help us, right? And to keep us alive and healthy, right? If this is my temple, right, and I'm supposed to keep it healthy, then God put the things here for me to do that with, right? And so I've found, you know, different things with tinctures and different foods and stuff, you know, that help your body. And you know, it took a while to get them used to it, right? Like the two littlest ones, they'll eat anything, you know, they're like Mikey, you know, they'll just eat anything, right? But the older one, you know, he had been so used to how we used to do things, right? And my wife was used to how she was brought up and raised, that whenever I was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. This is not how we're going to live. And we're not, you know, doing it this way. I want to use food to keep us healthy, and I want to use food to keep us alive. Right. And they were just like, I don't like that. Why are you growing beets? Why are you growing radishes? Why are you growing this and that? We don't like to eat it. And it's like, well, you have to learn to like it.
Yep.
You know, you have to learn to like these things. And, you know, over time, over the past, you know, 2 years now, they have learned to like those things to where I'm not getting hassled about, you know, growing it. You know, there's no fighting about, well, why do I want it? I don't want to eat that, Dad. You know, it doesn't matter. You're going to sit there till you do eat it. Right. I mean, you know, cause it's beneficial for us. And so there's that learning curve that people have, right? They're in this mindset. They're stuck in this mentality of how we've done it in the US for so long that we eat whatever we want. Right. And unhealthy as we want. And then we go to the doctor and they give us medicine to correct our problems that only create more problems in the long run. And then we take another pill to correct that problem. And then we die at an early age. Right. Because we're not taking care of our temple. And so I love how you guys have got that system in place, and you don't want to go to the doctor unless you absolutely have to, because we're the same way here. Are you guys using tinctures and things like that? Are you guys making those types of things? What all
We actually, one of the first things we put into our garden was herbs, like perennial herbs, heat tolerant, natives that we can use for medicinals, because that was our main goal. Like, not only just even for our food, but like for our skin,
right,
for our hair, like, because once you get that light bulb that comes up about the food and all the junk that the FDA approves, you're shocked and you're like, okay, I have to fix the way I eat. So you fix the way you eat, and then you realize, wait a minute, well, what's in my shampoo? What's in my conditioner? What's in my lotion? You know, if I can ingest this stuff, they can sell me things to ingest. What am I putting on my skin?
Your biggest organ of your whole body. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you start to look and you're like, you can't pronounce 90% of the ingredients. You're like water, and then it's like blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And you're just like, Lord, where do I even start? And then you start to do your research, do your diligence, your research, because you want to and you're invested.
Right.
And then you start to see all these other ways, more ways even than just getting a Tylenol. There are like tons of other ways, tons of different herbs that you can use, different things that you wouldn't even think of, like pickle juice. Right. Like pickle juice being like your natural Gatorade. Like, like things you would not even think about, and pickling vegetables and fermenting and, like, let's say my child hates beets. Like, you use the example beets. They hate beets. I can literally dehydrate beets, and I can pulverize beets in the blender, and I can put it in a smoothie, and I can put pineapple in it, and they wouldn't even know it wouldn't even process that they're eating it. They don't even have to eat it whole. Like a beet, they could live. There's so many other options. You can turn it into a powder. And you can put that in soup. There are ways we can get this stuff in our bodies, even if we don't like it, and we can manipulate what it tastes like, etc., without, having to go and buy all this nonsense. Like, we even got on this track where, like, I believe in taking vitamins when you need vitamins, but we got into this kick where we were like, we all need to buy vitamins. We're buying all the vitamins. Like, I'm talking like all the vitamins. Right. We were just like, we need to take them. I'm taking like 6 vitamins a day. He's taking all these things. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, okay, I went from one pill popping to another pill popping. What is the problem? And then we were like, maybe we can just change the way we eat. And we changed the way we eat, and our health has changed tremendously. Like, I mean, you go one day from having normal migraines to no migraines, or maybe one headache occasionally. And you start to see, you're like, what did I change? I wasn't at the gym for 5 hours a day. All I did was change the foods and my hydration. And it really makes you think. It's like you see all these people out here and you're just like, I've seen people just healed from things like diabetes and, just from changing the way they eat. And, it's hard at first, especially when you're used to all these preservatives and processed foods and the quick stuff, because we love the quick and cheap.
Oh yeah,
stuff,
we do.
And I'm not even, it tastes good. Me and my kids, we had this thing the other day. I was like, unfortunately, McDonald's French fries are the best tasting French fries ever. And I was like, but guess what? They're terrible for you. And we have to know that the Lord, that one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And that goes for all things. I was like, not everything that tastes good is going to be good for you.
What changed my opinion in it all was I was deployed to Europe for like 6 months. I was in Romania for like 6 months. And while I was over there, I ate at a KFC and all this stuff. And the food there was phenomenal. Right. I mean, this is way better than I've ever had in the U.S. I went to a Subway there. The bread was super fresh. Everything was, I'm like, what is going on here? And then I began to look into it and research. And I realized like so much of the stuff that we allow here is outlawed over there.
Yep.
All the preservatives are outlawed. All this stuff is not allowed.
The dyes.
Yeah, all that stuff is, and I'm like, wait a minute here. I'm like, why are we allowing all this stuff?
Same company, different ingredients.
I mean, the KFC chicken there, I'm not gonna lie, was like the bomb, like the best chicken strips I've ever had in my life. And then I come back here and I try, and I'm like, it's so different, and it's because of the processing and everything. So that was my first eye opener. And then we got together, got married, and then she kind of brought it forth even more. And like I said, I'm that person where I'm like, if it makes sense, I'm for it. Like, if you can add 2 and 2 and make 4, let's do it, you know?
Right.
And especially if it lines up with the word of God. I mean, creation talks about that. He gave us herbs. He gave us the fruit for us. And he created all of these things for us to eat and to partake in. So it's like, well, if we were doing it way back then when we were first created and living on the earth, why can't we do the same now and have the same results?
And there's like, I remember one time, like we were just looking, and he has a Hebrew Greek Bible. So it kind of shows the,
breakdown of it.
Yeah.
I got one. I got one too.
Good. Those are awesome. And I
love
always recommend it. They even have an app. If anybody's on here, they have an app called, what is it? The Concordant, the Strong's Concordant. It's free. Yep. And you can look on there. So like we're looking at, and there's a scripture talking about how they will be deceived by pharmakeia, by sorcery. And I'm like, what is pharmakeia? Oh, it's a pharmacy. And it's also means sorcery and potion maker. And I'm just like, Lord, you've been talking to us this whole time.
Right.
And it just took a matter of us opening the Bible and seeing that we have been deceived.
Yep.
We have been deceived. And as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. When God opens my eyes, because we were ignorant before because we didn't know.
Yep.
Right.
But now we are judged by what we know.
That's true.
I was like, if I know something different, I'm not going back.
Yep.
Nope. And we're the same way here. I can remember in 2016, a preacher came and he was preaching at our church, and he said, the Bible talks about, that it's going to be pharmakeia, and in the last days there's going to be pharmakeia, and I'm there going, that sounds a lot like pharmacy, and then he was like, y'all know what that is? And he's like, it's pharmaceuticals, pharmacy. He was like, oh, you've got this problem, oh, you've got that problem, you're bipolar, you're this, you're that, labeling you of things that you're not, right? Calling you things that you're not, right? And all sorts of different stuff that he went through and broke down. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like, that was my first like eye opener, right? To like, okay, I'm tracking now, right? And so, you see all these things like now what they're doing with the MNRA stuff, right? And putting that stuff in everything, not just vaccines, but everything.
In food.
Right.
They're putting it in lettuce.
Right.
They're putting it in food.
Right.
And, you sit here and you're just like, thank you, Lord, for opening my eyes, because, I may have been that person that would have been like, oh, what a great idea. When you're ignorant, you're ignorant. You don't see, and I don't blame people who can't see. I really don't. Like, I'm just like, I've been there, but when somebody speaks to you about things, and that's why I'm really, really big on research. I'm like, I asked them, I'm like, look, you don't have to believe anything I say, but I need you to research for yourself.
Right.
More than just, going on Google and then clicking the first link you see. I need you to go in depth research on this. And then, and if you're a Christian, I need you to seek the Lord and pray.
That's right.
Over what I just told you.
Yeah.
Because, anything we do, we're not trying to argue with anybody. We're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. We're not trying to, be disrespectful. I'm trying to let you know that what we've been doing has been working.
Right.
What we have been doing has been working.
Yep.
I see it. And, there have been times, God has given us all this knowledge, and it's the Lord. All glory to the Lord. He has shown us. I have seen people healed of many of these mainstream sicknesses, especially nowadays. I've seen people at the altar healed, come into church with that stuff, prayed over and healed. YouTube don't like that. But
No.
it's the truth.
Yep.
It's the truth. It is happening.
Our son was born, our oldest one was born with hypothyroidism. And so I can remember going, supposedly, all right. And I can remember going to the doctor, the endocrinologist. I said, okay, hypothyroidism. How long before he's grown out of this? Right now, at the time, I wasn't going to church whenever he was first born in 2011. And he was like, oh, he'll always have it. He'll always have hypothyroidism. That's just going to be a thing. I said, okay. So that was in 2011, 2016, when we started going to church, and I got saved in late 2015, started going to church in 2016. And we had him prayed over the day before we took him to the endocrinologist. Okay. Take him in there. Every time he had to get blood work because he wanted to see if he needed to increase his dosage for the, I can't think of the medicine he was on, but it's for hypothyroidism, right? Started with an S, but anyways, he had to do blood work. Well, he does the blood work. He comes back in there and he's like, he's scratching his head and he's mumbling. He's like, I don't know. He's like, the blood work says that he's fine. And man, me and my wife were like, well, praise God, hallelujah. And he's like looking at us like, what are you talking? I was like, well, we had him prayed over last night, and obviously God healed him, and he was like, well, I don't know who your God is, but okay, and I mean, it blows their minds because they have a carnal mindset. Correct. They have a mind that has been taught worldly things, like right. You don't get healed from hypothyroidism. You have that your entire life. And then when you say that, they're just like, well, I don't know what happened, but obviously it's a miracle. Right. Yeah. And walk on. It's just like our youngest one, Malachi, when her water broke, we had just found out he was a boy. Her water broke that night. And, we go to the doctor the next day and he's like, yep, your water definitely broke. Go over to the hospital and we'll get you started on this stuff, make you go into labor and you'll pop him out and pretty much abort him. Right. And I was like, he's still got a heartbeat. Well, yeah, but he's going to have this problem and this problem and this problem and this problem. I said, yeah, but God can do all things. And until God takes him, we're going to, because, we lost our first child at 38 weeks utero. All right. Mm-hmm. And so we weren't no stranger to losing a child. Right. But we were strangers to having a God who can do all things. Right. And so when you have that boldness, that faith, right, yep. You get bold, right, like a lion, and you're like, no, we'll let God deal with this, and whatever God sees fit to do, then that's what God sees fit to do, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it no matter what, because the Bible says in all things give God thanks, right? Not just because it's good, but in all things, no matter what the circumstance is, I'm going to give him thanks. And so we told him that, and he was like, all right, y'all's decision then. I'll put her on antibiotics, I'll pump her full of IVs every day, and we'll keep her in the hospital for as long as we need. She stayed there for like 2 or 3 weeks. She ended up having to go back for like a weekend. And then her water broke at 27 weeks utero. And, we thought, this was it. Right. God got it. God is a funny God. God like, right. So my last 2 kids was born on my birthday, a year apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we had been in the hospital. We went to Women's and Children's. And like I said, she was 27 weeks at the time. And they were like, we're just trying to get you to 30 weeks. If we can get you to 30 weeks with him, we'll be good. If he comes now, there's a very, very high chance he's not going to make it, And we were like, well, 24 weeks, the Chinese are having 24-week-old children born, and they're living, viable at 24 weeks. So he's 3 weeks past that. What are you talking about? Well, that's with a healthy pregnancy. She's not had a healthy pregnancy. He has had no water, no measurable amount of water since 16 weeks. So his lungs are going to be, this, that, and the other. And they gave us all sorts of bad predictions. And out he come, 27 weeks. I mean, there was nothing that they could not stop it if they wanted to. They tried and they couldn't stop it. And, it was a very touch and go situation. But I sat there and I watched God move, right? And I watched other parents who had stronger, healthier babies lose their children, right? And God's hand of protection was over. And I'm not saying that was that God wanted that for their kids or anything. Right. I'm not saying that. what I am saying is I watched God use that child to speak to the multitude of people who denied the deity of Christ and denied that he would do anything, said he would come out deformed, said he would come out dumb, all these bad things that they spoke over him. And we chose to speak life, and we see him running around every day. Right. So there's a huge difference in how we talk, how we act, what we do, what we say, think, and everything. And it really is that battle, right, of good and evil, right, and what we decide to use and say.
And so, it's like, you've seen that whole testimony. The doctor saw that testimony. The nurse saw that testimony, and to this day, physicians don't forget those things.
No, they don't.
So when another parent goes into that office with the same scenario, your child is going to be mentioned. Well, we had one case where that testimony lives on.
Let me interject real quick. So the doctor, the gyno that she had, he had lost a child before to this. So we think that in his mind, he didn't want to have to bear that again. So it was easier for him to say, go abort it and get rid of it. So I don't have to bear the burden of this. And when we didn't, his brother, he ended up coming, he talked to us. He would come talk to us almost every day. And he said, my brother's a pastor and I'm not necessarily a believer, but I've asked him, questions about this and that. And we got to share our faith with him, and so I love I love when God sets a stage for us to be able to share what he's done for us. You know what I mean? Because you might not be a believer, but me being a believer and having strong faith and telling you what God has done for me could change your whole perception of who and what God is.
That's amazing.
And I love it. I love it.
Wow. That's awesome.
So I know y'all's got to probably go here in a second, so I don't want to keep y'all for too long. So if you guys need to go, just let me know.
You got us on the hook now. Now we're just like, now.
But like I said, it's just wonderful to be able to have like-minded people on too. You know what I mean? Because you don't get that very often. You don't get people who think like you, believe like you, and stuff. And you got to kind of. It's not that you're tiptoeing around it, but you don't want to, butt too hard against them, right? So it's just great having you guys on tonight, to be able to share these experiences with each other. But what do you guys got coming up?
When we first started this channel, our name was different. So like when we first started the channel, it was like Brook Trot Homestead. It's like a combining of our two, because we're a blended family of two last names. We combined it. That was our name. Right. And I remember when we started getting a following, I literally felt the Spirit being like, change the name and glorify me, Right. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, Jesus Loving Homestead, so we changed the name and, it changed the whole thing because I was like, you know what? I have had times where I would look for certain videos. Like I'd be like, I need to learn something, Right. And I would turn it off mid video if they start like ridiculously cussing and or like I've noticed a lot of channels will even use their spouse to be like provocative, like it's the weirdest thing. So like I would turn it off and I'm like, praise God, because I want somebody to see my channel name and feel safe,
right?
Because there is nothing on our channel that your children can't watch.
That's right. That's the same here. So whenever we in 2020, we bought our other set of chickens, and I was, kept having this urge to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, why do I need to start a YouTube channel? I don't need that hassle. I'm good, and I just kept feeling, I said, all right, I'll buy the stuff, I'll buy the stuff and we'll see how it goes. And so I started looking for names, as I'm thinking about doing this, as it feels like I'm being led to do it. I'm thinking about names and I'm just like, I just can't think of a name. And Heavenly Hills Homestead popped up and I was like, okay, all right, So I was like, let's poll it. Let's poll Heavenly Hills and West Virginia this and West Virginia that and whatever, right? Everything won but Heavenly Hills Homestead. And I said, I need to name it Heavenly Hills Homestead because if the world, you know, will vote for all these other things, right?
Mhm.
And the one thing you're left with is this thing that you thought you should call it. That's probably what you should call it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I went with. And, you know, people will ask, well, like, where'd you come up with the name? You know, and then when you're like, well, you know, God told me to call it that, they're like, huh? You know, and oh no, where did they go? Let me see if they'll come back on. Hang on a minute, y'all. Let me see.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Yep. Oh, yep. We're back.
Right.
There you go. All right. Good to go. So,
right.
But yeah, you know, they'll just look at you like, what are you talking about? You know, and it's just another way to be able to talk to people. You know, I mean, I think everybody, you know, I was told one time, you know, there is somebody for everybody out there to witness to. God has somebody out there for every sinner that's lost. There is somebody that's saved that's going to witness to them and has the potential to win them over. Right. And so just calling the channel that is just another tool to be used. Right.
It is. And Christians are looking for channels that they can be safe watching. Like, I mean, literally.
And it's part of building the kingdom. I mean, it's literally kingdom minded, kingdom connections, the way God wants it to be done. You know, I mean, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. Right. So when other kingdom people and you know, of like faith people are looking, like she said, they're drawn to that. And we should be looking for other Christian channels that we can subscribe to, watch, support them, and then they support us. And then here we are creating a legit community, and we're connecting with one another across state lines, across all of this, and we can share and talk like we are here and being able to grow that. And I think that's what God really wants. So that way other people can look in and see it and be like, oh, wow, so there are others doing it. There are people who are living this life, and they are really being spirit-led. And it doesn't sound so crazy to everyone else, you know, when you begin to talk about it. And it kind of boosts your confidence too, because then you're like, wait a minute. So there are other channels that are doing what we're doing. And it really boosts faith. It boosts our boldness and our confidence to continue. And I just think it's a wonderful thing. I love it.
I love it too. I think it's awesome. We've met so many people and stuff. We have somebody came to our church one time. A couple came to our church. They're still at our church today. They're going to like 3 years or so. And they found us on YouTube. They literally found us on YouTube. They were watching our channel, trying to learn how to garden in our area. And then they came to church, and we were like, got really cool with them. And they were like, hey, we have to tell you something. And I'm just like, she's like, so I kind of looked into you on YouTube. You know, I was watching your YouTube, and I was kind of like, what church do they go to? And she's like, and then I just found your church. And I was like, how cool is that? And what's crazy is that was a time where I felt kind of silly about YouTube, where I was like, you know what, God, is this taking up our time? Like, is this a waste of time? Is this some silly thing? You know, I wasn't feeling as confident about it. And then God is like, look, somebody off your YouTube channel goes to church now, you know? And I'm just like, wow, only the Lord, you know, like he's so good. Those little confirmations. It's just so cool.
It is. And, you know, going back, you know, whenever you were like, you've seen people use their spouses, you know, I've seen that too. And, you know, to me, in my mind, you know, I couldn't put my wife out there in booty shorts, you know, and take a thumbnail of her just to get views. First off, that wouldn't be very Christian-like. Second of all, even if I wasn't a Christian, I don't think I could put my wife out there in a provocative position. I mean, it's essentially pimping her out.
Yeah. That's exactly
I mean, like, come take a peep show at my wife, you know? And
it is the weirdest thing. Like, it is seriously so weird.
I have too much respect for my wife to even proposition that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's just.
And a lot of these people have children. Like, they have children, and you're just like.
Right.
Like, your kids are seeing your channel. Like, you're like 30, 40 years old, 50 years old, and you're over here like, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Like,
the other part to that is a lot of them have OnlyFans too.
Yeah.
You know, like,
that's
and it's
wild.
Like, and it's just like your kids are going to grow up to see this stuff. And you don't want, I guaranteed if you went and said, hey, do you want your kids to emulate that? Would you want your wife or would you want your daughter's husband to do that to her? Well, no, I would, so why are you doing it to your wife?
Correct.
I mean, you wouldn't want that for your daughter, but it's okay to do it to your wife. I mean, it's just so, like you said, so weird.
It's so weird.
It's weird. Unsettling,
Yeah.
And some of these channels will, some of them will mention God, we went to church and we did this and it's like, okay, so what's the pastor say about this? Does Pastor Edwards know that you got your like that? I mean, come on now, what's going on with you?
It's true,
right?
It's so true. It's so true.
But they'll do anything for views, and I never wanted to do that. I've literally, I've been blessed because I started out really just, doing what God said, documenting the stuff, just having fun with it and whatever. And last year, Bland's Promised Land Ranch wrote out, said, hey, we want you to come on and, do an interview with us and stuff. And I was like, okay, I've never done one of them before, but all right, cool. And that kind of really is what skyrocketed, right? Like God used them because they're great people, right? And God used them to help me out, right? To be like, hey, it's not all for naught. You're not doing it for nothing. Because I think at the time I had like 300 subs. After I got on their channel, I went straight to 500, and it's just been an onward climb the whole time. And I've met great people, through that. And it wasn't in vain. It wasn't me thinking it was in, anything I've done in myself. It was, led by God, and I've been following that, and it feels good to get those little confirmations, like you said, here and there, because I never want, I wanted the growth, right? But I was not willing to do the things that the world said I had to do to get the growth, right? Yep. Like I wouldn't compromise. And I think a lot of times with YouTube and wanting the growth and seeing other people grow, people will compromise things and try to justify it to say, okay, well, it's okay because I got the growth, right? And really, you have to sit back and say, well, really, is it okay that you've done that? Like, there are some big YouTube channels that I started watching years ago that I no longer can watch. Yeah, because God was just like, they might have been at one point, following and doing the things, but now it's just ceremony. It's strange fire, right? Yeah. And God don't want your strange fire, right. And so they're just going through the motions. Yeah, they might do a little Christmas special or whatever, but that, like one YouTuber I watched not too long ago, I hadn't watched him for a while. It was back last year, and he's got his son in the hunting blind, and some hunters walked up to the hunting blind, and they shot not in the direction, but in a direction of where they were at. And he comes out of there, flying, cussing them out, calling them the P word, and I mean, all kinds of stuff in front of his 10 or 11-year-old son. And I'm like, I can understand being mad. Yeah. But there is a righteous anger that we're to have. And, I can understand people, we all fall short every day. Yep. I can understand that. But at the same time, you just failed your son miserably because you acted like a complete and total worldly person because you got angry.
And that shows how much respect you have for your family.
Yeah. Right.
It's like you see that and you think, you're like, wow, like, where's the respect for your family?
And not even that, like, I mean, not only did he do that in front of his son and fly off, he even went and posted it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well,
even
his excuse was, see, I'm not perfect. Even I cuss and fall, and it's like,
cop out.
Right. Right. I mean, like, it's just, it's,
so sad.
It is. It's so sad because, am I going to sit here and say I'm perfect? Absolutely not. Have I smashed my finger with a hammer and said something bad? Yeah. You know what I mean? But then I'm like, oh God, why did I say? I feel worse that I said it than my finger does hurting. Yeah. Because that's grieving the Holy Ghost. Like you don't, like there should be a conviction
Right.
when you do bad things, right? I
Right.
mean, the Bible's very clear. Without the chastisement of the Holy Spirit, you're a bastard.
Right.
I mean, it literally calls you a
That's
bastard.
the
Like,
truth.
you know, and so, you know, if you're grieving them, you can only go grieve the Holy Spirit for so long before he's just like, I'm done. I'm done. Do what you're going to do. Have your fun, whatever. Live your life. And I think a lot of times, though, what we're going to see is I might not have the biggest subscription rate. Heck, there might be subscribers that drop off after the night, right? But
it happens.
Yeah, but right. But here's the thing. I would rather do what's pleasing under the sight of God than to please a man any day.
That's right.
Because my blessings and my spiritual well-being, my stuff is stored in heaven anyhow. You know what I mean? So if I've got 1 million subs, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, it ain't going to matter nothing. I mean, that's all going to burn away in fire one day. So, you know, that's how we have to look at it. And I think a lot of these YouTubers that are Christians, was Christians, however you want to look at it, I think one day they're going to look back and they're going to say, I made some very bad, poor decisions. And they're going to find themselves having to either repent or they're going to find themselves in a place where they're not going to want to be.
Yeah. I mean, the word even says, it says the love of money, right? Is the root of all evil.
Right.
So it's like they're chasing the subs, they're chasing that money, they're chasing that hit. And in that process, to them, like you said, oh, well, this is going to increase. This is going to help me get views. Oh, okay, man, I see all this. And before they know it, they're down this trail and they're like, oh, man, I'm doing all this crazy, wicked stuff.
Right.
And when they began, they're like, we would never do that.
Right.
But then the subs came, the views came, all this stuff, and they ended up falling prey to it. And it is a sorrowful thing. Like, it really does. It breaks your heart when you see it because you're like, man, like, you didn't have to go that route. You know, like, you didn't have to go down that. You chose to. And, you know, I'm hoping that, like you said, they come to reality. I really hope that they wake it up one day and be like, wow, we messed it up. You know, like we did wrong and we got to change this.
Right. So what do you guys got going on in y'all's near future? What do y'all got plans for next?
Right now, we're actually, it's so funny. We're actually doing kind of like a reset right now in our garden. We've kind of let it go this year because of the drought and everything. And it's just been a really bad year for us. So we're kind of letting the garden kind of sit right now. Once the weather cools, we're going to go in there and basically just rip everything out, clean it completely, put down new compost, new mulch. I mean, just do a whole new layer of garden bed in there and then start fresh next year. So we kind of took, honestly, a scriptural principle where, you know, you garden for 6 years, rest for 7.
Right.
And we kind of did it nonchalantly, like without knowing. And it kind of happened. And then we're like, hey, you know what? Why don't we do that? Like, why don't we give our land rest, allow it to recoup some stuff? So that's kind of what we're doing this year. And the garden side is just letting it go. And then I got to get in there and tear everything out, get rid of a lot of stuff, wheelbarrow literally a ton of mulch into the back and everything. So that's really big on the garden side.
We've also been kind of praying a little bit and kind of starting to work on our house a little bit here and there with projects and stuff like that, because I was like, you know what? If God shows us land that, you know, on Zillow or something, you know, if we're looking and we see a property that we feel led to buy, I want us to be like, we have spoken about it. It's like, I feel like that time is coming. I feel like it's coming. We want to make sure our house is in order to where we can literally be like, this is the property, call the realtor, let's put our house on the market.
Right.
You know, to where we don't have to be like, oh man, we have so much we have to do.
Yeah.
So we're also, which is funny how God's timing is, because we let go of the garden for right now. I processed all our tomatoes and everything. So we let go of the garden for the rest of the summer, but it's also given us a time to kind of sit and kind of be like, you know what? There are some things that never got done because we were, you know, just so focused on the garden. Right. I was like, this is a time that God is giving us to where we can do other things, you know, and that may lead to something even greater. Yeah. Right. So we're also kind of in this time of just like getting things prepared for maybe one day soon or later, whenever we can just go, you know, if we're called to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. So if what are you guys looking for? What would be the place that you would see on Zillow and say, that's the one? Do you know? Do you have something in your mind? Like, is it an acre? Is it 2 acres? Is it 10 acres?
The funny thing is we were, there was one that we were looking at and it kind of popped up. And this is what really also got our mindset shifted. It was 10 acres of property. It was probably 75% covered in trees, already had a pond on it. A house was already 80% complete on it. What?
You were like, and it.
Oh, sorry. I'm an aggressive talker.
Well,
no.
He's on the tab. We're on the tablet, so the tablet's like.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. We want nothing less than 3, but probably no more than 10. I want something
So
that
like
we can
3 to
maintain.
10. Yeah, 3 to 10 is that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
with a pond, with trees, because I want to be able to have firewood. I want to be able to harvest firewood, do that stuff.
Right.
Because we want our main goal is be completely off grid one day. So that's really where we're
Which
looking.
it seems like it might seem like a lot to others, but it's really not. That's not a lot to ask for, especially where we are at. But yeah, it's just
what about a well?
Ready.
Yes, I would love, if not have a well, being able to drill a well.
Right.
Definitely would love that. And
in the same area that y'all's in, or?
Well, we have this kind of, okay, so I don't know if we established this. He pastors our church.
Yeah.
So our church is in an area, we will go as far as an hour drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
We drive 30 minutes right now.
Right.
Which, to be honest, in Texas, that's nothing. Like, I mean, it's literally nothing. Like, I'll drive an hour to get something cool on the Facebook Marketplace. Like, it's not a big deal. So we're like, an hour or less is what we're hoping to close to the church.
You're right.
So
y'all
right now
like
we're 30 minutes. So
y'all can do 75 out there, right?
Yeah.
Is there somewhere that in Texas, or is it Colorado, that there's 80-mile-an-hour speed limit?
In Texas, there's a highway that goes from 2 major cities, and the speed limit's 80.
Okay.
Well, even on the 75, people are going 85, and then they're mad at you because you're going the speed limit.
80 just means 90. I mean,
it's really
right.
I'll be on the right lane going the speed limit because everybody's nuts on the left lane.
Get out of the way.
It's like, man, I'm doing 80 and a 60 right now, and you're still riding.
Grandma.
Right.
The speed limit. What's wrong with you?
That's funny.
But yeah, that's really what we're looking at, and we both know that when the time comes, it's going to be a God thing. And that's how we've been praying, and that's the way we've been seeking the Lord. Is like, when the time comes, we want it to be in a fashion, in a way that it's only by God. Like, I don't want to finagle my way into it. Nope. I don't want to, I want to make sure that when it happens, it's like all doors are shut and it just pops up and it just goes through, and it's like a miracle type of situation.
Right.
Yep.
So
that's the same thing with us. Like, we outgrew this. Literally, the moment we moved in, she was pregnant. We didn't know she was pregnant with the third one, right? Because we had our first one, it passed away. We had our second one, and he was 6, I think, whenever our third one was born. And so she was like 6 months old when we started moving here. And I can remember that I was unloading the truck. And she comes out with this sour look on her face, and she's holding this thing in her hand. And I'm like, what's the matter? She was like, I told you done it. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, oh no, I feel a little sick too. Okay. Well, I guess God wanted another one, because literally for 6 years, it didn't matter what we done. We could not have a kid.
Right.
And God just like, there you go, 2 of them in a row, and we're like, and so as we moved in this house, we had already outgrew this house. Right. And so we've just been slowly biding our time, right? Like, okay, God, like there was a house at the end of the road here that we would have loved to have had. It was 14 acres, big old house. Not that we would have been able to afford it for what they sold it for, because it was like $600,000, and I'm like, but we thought it was like 200,000, right? But anyhow, like there's going to come a time when, like you said, everything's going to be shut off, but there's going to be this path, and it's just going to drop in your lap, and it's going to be like, that's the one. This is where we need to go, right? And so that's really what we've been waiting on. The same thing. Like we know we're way too big for here. Like our animals are spewing over into the empty lot beside us into the woods, right? Yep. I mean, it's not that we don't have permission to use it, right? We just, but we can't do what we want to on there. It's Correct. Not, we can't change it. We can let them go over there, but we can't change anything about it. So we're having, we know we're too big, and we're just waiting for that moment to come to, it says, okay, here you go, pack up and leave. Right. And I'll be honest with you. I can't wait for that time to come because it's needed. It's needed. The family's too big.
We are.
Yeah. Yep. We just got there. Like, honestly, up until this past month, if you would have asked us 3 months ago, I'd have been like, no, we're good. We're cool.
Right.
I mean, this is our forever home. We're going to stay here. We're okay. We always had a mindset of, yes, God is going to open up another door. We always had that option there because it's been prophesied over us that we're going to have more property and all this. So we knew it was coming. We just never had that unctioning in the spirit, until this past probably like week or 2 weeks. We just felt it. And like I said, this one property that popped up, we're like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this would be amazing. So we kind of were somewhat pursuing it and was like, okay, what, trying to fill it out. It didn't work out. And we're like, okay, that's fine. But in the back of our minds, we're like, okay, but what if it was?
Right.
Well, and we felt prepared. Like, there's a certain peace that will come over you. We were not at all prepared at all to even look at houses, a few months ago. And then I see God blessing us in so many other areas to where it's like, there's more we want to do. There's more things that we're looking at doing. We want to get more serious about going to markets and doing a market garden and, selling soaps and doing these little things that I know it'll take a lot of work and space and time, for where we are now. It's just these things that I know is coming. So I'm like, Lord, whenever you're ready, like,
right.
Yep.
I understand that completely. Like, we homeschool our kids, there's nowhere really to homeschool them at here. Like, it would be great. Like, okay, the living room works, right? It's fine. But what would be nice is if we had that extra room, the study or whatever, right, to put them in there and actually be able to teach them where it's not their, the TV right there. And they're like, they keep looking at the TV, even though it's off, right? They're just like locked onto it. Like there's nothing playing. Yeah. But in my mind, Dad, there's something playing, what I mean? Like, like you get that vibe off of them and you're kind of like, all right, focus back again here. Right. So, it would be great to have that study or, wherever to be able to do those things in and stuff. So I'm right there with you guys. So you guys make soap now? Or?
Well, we're just venturing into it. It's been something I wanted to do for a while. And I kind of just finally is like I told you, things will sit for me for a while. I mean, I want to make sure that it's the right thing. That's just how I am. So I was like, let's just do it. So we've got some things in order where I'm just going to start doing this. I've already got people booking us for little things. And I'm just like, all right, cool. We're all in.
Right.
And we homeschool as well. Our dining table has become the homeschool area. And it's just it's like every time we want to eat something, I'm like, guys, clean up your stuff. I'm like, you're right. It becomes very crowded very quickly.
Yes, it does.
Because we have 4 kids. And we're in, I don't know, our house is 1,300 square foot.
Yeah.
And so it gets crowded. And then I hear birds. Do you have chicks in there?
There's one somewhere here. There's a lot here.
So it's we have scenarios that you have right behind you where it's okay, we just had fun incubating eggs. So where are we putting the little brooder? And it ends up in one of the rooms or somewhere random.
Yeah.
This is a greenhouse for the inside.
Yep.
It has heating mats in it. And I said, well, we just turned it into an extra brooder. So there's chicks up here. There's chicks here. There's a poor chicken that Hang on, let me find him real quick. Come here, buddy. Where'd you go? Where you at? There you are. Okay. Come here. This one, I think I'm gonna have to put out of his misery, unfortunately, because he's pretty big. He's a pretty big chicken. We hatched him out, but he got wry neck really bad. See how he's got wry neck?
Oh yeah.
And it don't matter what we do, we can't fix him.
Right.
And so what he does is we've got him in here on the heat mat, rolled up in a towel, and he keeps getting out of it and going down to the floor. But anyways, my wife had just told me at dinner time that I probably should go take and put him out of his misery.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate doing that.
I know it.
Because that is not fun. You know, expect like this one here, it's a silky I think it might be a frizzle. A silky frizzle.
Oh.
Yeah. So you know, we don't know what happened. We think maybe our Sarama hen, okay, buddy, okay, had jumped in and laid an egg in the box he was in and messed him up. Is what we think happened, but we don't know. So, because we've tried to straighten him up with vitamins and everything else, and nothing's really worked.
That's the hard part. That's always the hard part.
That's the part of homesteading no one really talks about.
Especially when they're babies. That's the hard part. Like when they're tiny and they're brand new and you're looking and you're like, oh no, because you immediately notice there's something wrong.
Right.
Oh, that's the worst. And then you have to tell your kids, you're like,
I can go outside and I can exterminate the entire yard with prejudice, and it does not bother me, right? I mean, just go out there and lay waste to everything that needs to go, right? And I feel fine when I go to bed.
Yeah.
But when I have to do that, that breaks me up in 1,000 pieces, because I don't want to cause anything little like harm and stuff. It just bothers me to the core. So I mean, like I said, I can go out there. If it's my food, no problem. Mow it all down, put it in there.
Same thing with us.
But them chicks and them little ones, I can't do it. I mean, I can do it. I'm the only one that does do it. It just, I don't like to do it. A lot of times what they don't see is when Daddy goes out there and does it, Daddy sheds a couple tears before I have to, oh crap, this sucks, man, and then and then just walk away, right? So but it is what it is. But you're right. Nobody talks about that part of homesteading. If they did, nobody would homestead.
Our friends got into raising rabbits, and they had a scenario where like one of the moms stomped on the baby or something, and they're like, so what do we do? How do we fix it? And I'm just like, you don't. Like, you've got to put that baby down. Like, there's nothing you can do. And they're just looking at me like, what do you mean? Like,
right.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, like my wife, like I said, she's become the chicken lady, right? So she's constantly, I mean, when I say constantly, I mean constantly. Like, I'm the quail guy. I want quail. I love quail, and I've got, Lord, the thing out there is full of quail out there. I bet there's 100 of them out there. We started with 6. Now there's 100. So, quail math. That's a lot worse than chicken math I ever thought about. But she'll get these chickens, and they'll be sick, or she'll be trying to work on them, they won't recover, and then she's like, well, what do I do with it? I don't want to suffer no more, and like the ball peen hammer becomes your best friend, right? You just gotta, just quick, easy, tap on the head and put it, good night and walk away. But it just, like you said, it's hard to do. I mean, nobody wants to do that. You know what I mean? People don't understand, because there's going to be people that would hear that and be like, well, you can go out there and lay waste to the entire yard and you go to bed fine. What's the problem with that baby one? Well, it's because it's innocent. It's done nothing. It didn't get to live its life. It didn't get to fulfill its purpose. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, because the purpose of that one would not be to eat. The purpose of that one would be to provide more of that breed.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because those are fancy breeds that bring lots of money. And so, like, it would end up being a pet. You know what I mean? And so, people, there's differences. They're like, we don't have a pet deer, but if you go and look on my stuff, there's a deer that comes around here all the time that we just happen to raise from a baby. And but it's not my pet. It's wild. It lives out there. It goes. It comes whenever it wants to. you know, but I can go out there and play with her, have fun with her, pet her, whatever. I'm good. But when it comes time to hunt, I'm out there, I'm doing my thing, and I will put down whatever comes in front of me, and it doesn't bother me. You know, now my wife, I don't know that she'll be able to do it anymore because she's done got so, you know, my buddy, he refuses to come up here and pet her because he says I'd never be able to shoot another one, you know. You know, so you know, but I have that separation. I'm able to separate, you know, and that's what we have to do. We have to be able to separate what is fun and playful and whatever you want to call it, pets or whatever, versus this is my food, this is my sustenance, this is what I got to do in order to survive.
Right.
It gives me its life gives me life. You know what I mean?
And like she said, we raised our kids up with this, you know, especially our youngest son. This is all he's known.
Right.
So when we were processing bunnies, he was like 4 years old out there with me, like watching me do it. He would even ask me like, well, why are you doing this? But I would show him like, this is why I'm doing this, you know? And he's like, oh, is it going to hurt him? I'm like, no, it's going to be quick, easy. You know, it's quick dispatch. We don't do painful stuff. We want to make sure it's quick and easy. And I explained that to them. And as I did that, they became way more comfortable with it. And they could understand. Right. And when we process our ducks, our chickens, same thing, our roosters, you know, they're like, oh, okay, so this goes in our freezer. And it's going to help feed us and sustain us. This is why we have this. And they would watch it and they're like, oh, so he's not in pain? No, he doesn't feel nothing anymore. It's done. It's over with. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And I caused that separation at a young age so that way they would understand and they could see it themselves.
Right.
And then, we let them love on the ones that they can love on and then give it to them and let them know, hey, this is going to be for this. And I think especially with parents, I think sometimes we shelter our kids a little too much.
Yep, we coddle them.
Yeah, I mean, kids are highly intelligent. They are super smart. They grasp and maintain stuff so much better than honestly we do at times. Yep. So if you give it to them straight and you talk to them like they're human beings, like they're adults, guess what? That's how they take it. That's how they respond, and they move forward with it.
I got a perfect example of this. So my daughter is my right hand, right? Wherever I go, she's on my hip.
Yeah.
I would have thought the boys would have been, but no, they stay with mommy, you know, and she's right here, you know. So we were over at the neighbor's house, and my neighbor still talks about it to this day. This has been, I think she was 2 or 3 at the time, and she's 5 now. And we had killed chickens, you know, and put them away. And there was a cat running around her porch, and it was little. And she was like, so Daddy, are we going to eat this? And that the neighbor, she was like, did she just ask if y'all was going to, do y'all need food? Or I was like, no. We're good. We're good. We don't need no food. We're fine. She's just learning. Come here, honey. Come here. I was like, she's just learning, you know, like we eat chickens, we process chickens, and say hi.
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 Wave. Getting sleepy? Okay. I'll be in there in a little bit. You'll watch TV. Love you. So she, you know, I had to explain to the lady, the neighbor, I was like, no, we process chickens. I had to tell her, like, you know, we raised them up, you know, you played with them for a time or whatever, and now it was time to eat them. And she was trying to still learn what was acceptable to eat. Yeah. Right. And so she's like, well, there's a cat running around. I love on the cat. We're going to eat it later because I love the chickens and we ate them, you know? So they do, you know, you got to teach them. Right. But I mean, they're just, they never fail to embarrass you. Right. They get you out there in a perfect moment. Like, hey, yeah, we're eating the cat, Dad.
Yeah.
You know? But,
and that's the funny thing too, because it's like, we have a family that came here from Sierra Leone, Africa. And we spoke to him a little bit, and he was telling us some of the things that they eat over there, you know, that is completely normal. Like, it's completely normal to eat, like, monkey and, you know, like, certain animals that the kids are just like, oh. But then I was like, it's just so different, you know, in different places. But it's so interesting to me, like, even some of these channels that are from, like, Australia and different things, you get to see such a variety of differences. And, and then your kids learn so much. They learn so much. And they're not like, because this generation, especially, very, very closed minded when it comes to anything that you would deem almost like been done for generations, like normal, They're like, oh no, I won't do that. I won't do that. No, I'm not doing, like, it's just like how far we've come, like, away from what God intended.
Right.
And it wasn't even that long. It was 3 generations. I mean, my grandfather told me when he was a child, he's like, yeah, my mom would buy a goat. We'd have it in the backyard. He's like, I'd play with a goat for a while. The goat would be gone.
Right.
Where did the goat go? She's like, it's dinner, and his dad would walk out in the backyard, grab a chicken, wring its neck, pop it, walk inside, cook it for dinner. And that wasn't that long ago.
And we wouldn't dare do that. That's the funny thing, because even we're doing the same thing. But, like, what is the first thing he said? He's like, we do it in a humane way.
Yeah.
And then we think about our great-grandparents, they're just like...
spin it like a helicopter,
Even our methods have even softened a bit. It's just so funny seeing the differences in general.
Yeah. It is. Like, my great-grandmother, she was a pastor. And, but I guess it was during like right after the Depression. They were still poor, and she was pregnant with my mama, and she was craving chicken. And so she had went and tried to offer this neighbor to buy one of her chickens, and the neighbor wouldn't sell it to her. So my grandmother caught the chicken in her yard one day and was like, it's in my yard. So she eats the chicken. And years later, she's preaching a revival, and she says, she goes to this lady. She said, God told me I needed to apologize. And she tells her about the chicken that she ate. And so the woman says, I had a feeling that's where that chicken went to, but I had no proof of it. My mama says, yeah, because it was in the dumpling pot. That's why you didn't have no proof of it. The whole thing went.
But look at God. I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, you think you got away with something.
Yep.
But I'm like, the truth, the Bible says that the truth is going to come to light. And you know what? When you start feeling that stirring, he'll have you apologizing to people you messed with 20 years ago.
Exactly.
That is so awesome.
It was funny. My great grandmother was just a funny person. And, I can remember her talking about, when I needed a chicken, we'd go out there, I'd wring its neck. My grandmother still talks about how Mama Osborne would go out there and grab a chicken and wring its neck, just, and I'm like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. We have these things called kill cones, and we stick them down, upside down. We pull their neck through, and we cut their.
We buy all this extra stuff.
Right. They was so simple back then. Like, I guarantee you, though, if you tried to wring one's neck and somebody seen you do that,
oh man,
they would call somebody on you. You know what I mean? Like,
they would call the YouTube police.
Yeah,
you'd be kicked out, demonetized.
Yep. So I mean, it's just so weird, though. Like you said, we have become very soft in how we do everything. And it just kind of speaks to, like, if it changed that much since our great grandparents and our grandparents and even our parents, how much more is it going to change between us and our great grandkids?
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't continue these practices and show them, right, like, this is how it's meant to be. This is how we were created to live. We weren't created to go to the store and, one of my biggest things anymore is the money thing, right? Like, okay, yeah, money, great. Wow, I can buy products with it. Mm-hmm. I would rather barter.
Yep.
I would rather trade, you know what I mean, than to use the money system, because money makes you tied to a job.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Adam and Eve wasn't tied to a job. They was tied to the garden that they had domain over. You know what I mean? They grew and took care of everything in the garden. That's how God created it to be. That's how we are supposed to be living, not under a banking system with all the, the debt that we have and everything else.
Parents are at work more than people don't know their kids.
No.
They don't know their kids. I was in a household. I was in public school. My parents worked. I never saw my family, like, because I would stay at school till like 8 o'clock because I was in like all these different things for the school. I didn't know my family, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is how the normal is nowadays. Like children, they go to school and they come home and they're doing homework for however long. They're seeing the absolute worst of mom and dad because they're tired. Mom and dad are tired. They've been dealing with people all day. The kids have been dealing with people all day. So what you do get to see is very minimal on the weekends, usually the good part of your family. You know, it's like, how far did we fall? Like, I mean, it's terrible.
Well, it is. It's really bad. I mean, if you think about, you know, when you let your kids go to school, if you let your kids go to school, like, you know, I had to make this conscious decision. If I let him go to school, I don't know who's over him. Yeah, they say the teacher's okay, but I don't know that. I have no idea. You know, like, I don't know what he's being taught or any of that. Here, I can give him a Christian education that I know everything about, that is factual education, not something that is pushed at a public school, right? And we get this sense of family here, right? It's all about us, right? Like, and there's people who will fuss at me, even still some family. You're sheltering them from the world, and you know, how are they going to have social skills and this and the other? Well, that's what the church is for. We're taking the church for the social skill part of it. And as for the world, I don't want them in the world. So I'm trying to keep them from it. And then, you know, well, they'll get out there in it eventually. Then they'll go buck wild. Well, let's pray that they got enough God in them that they don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you know, you teach them right, you know, okay. So let's say worst case scenario is they get out from underneath mommy and daddy. They go to college and they're like, wow, I didn't know all this existed. If they've got enough God in them, there's going to be that inkling, that unction of, I shouldn't do this. And even if they do try it out, there's going to still be that was bad. I shouldn't do that anymore. You know, because my friend, who is also the pastor of our church, you know, they have their kids in Christian school down there. And, you know, the oldest one is now a teenager, and she wanted to go to this scary Halloween thing. And James was, you know, or I think his wife was like, either him or his wife was like, no, we shouldn't let her go, you know, this and the other. And the other one said, no, let her go and let her see, you know, she wants to go. So called 20 minutes into it. Can you come pick me up? I don't want to be here. This is bad. This is demonic, you know? And they went and picked her up, and they were like, now you see why we didn't want you to go. Right. Sometimes you do have to give them enough rope. You know what I mean? You know,
and that was wisdom. That was just godly wisdom. That was 100% the Holy Spirit, you know, to even give them that wisdom to allow that, you know, to even, you know, that the Lord knows, you know,
absolutely.
And, you know, it's amazing to me too, the whole socialization thing. Cause I'm just like, I think back and I'm like, how much socializing did I do in a classroom with a teacher yelling at us consistently about being quiet? Like, I'm like, what part of, I remember going to lunch, running in line so that I could eat lunch, getting to the table, eating lunch, talking for maybe 20 minutes, if that, going straight back to class. What type of deep relationships did I actually have, you know? And I think back at like people I know from growing up, and I'm like, how many of these people do I actually continuously talk to? Like, you don't, you leave. It's like my kids they've been homeschooled. My daughter's been homeschooled, I don't know, like 6 years or something. I don't even know. It's been a little bit. They still have 90% of the friends that we started school with. Like homeschooling, our homeschool connections. And my kids are their friends, and we're their parents' friends.
If
I don't connect with my kids' friends' parents, like, and I'm not expecting them to be just like us at all. You know, but if I feel something off, guess what? My kid is not hanging with your kid. Because guess what? I'm the parent. You know, we can make that decision. You know, a lot of kids now, they're being raised by kids. Kids are being raised by kids. You know, and then you wonder, like, what well, how did we get so far? You know?
And even that, like, our kids are still kids.
Right.
Like I just forgot her age, 10. Our 10-year-old daughter is still like a 10-year-old child. Like, she's not trying to act like she's 16 or 15 and trying to act all like, no, she's still a child. Like, she still enjoys children things. Why? Because she's being able to live as a child.
And I see kids her age. They're at school. They're trying to wear crop tops, and then they don't want to do this and they don't want to do that. Well, they're too cool for this. They're too cool for that. 10 years old.
Think about what we learned in public school. Like, we learned how to cuss. We learned how to, we learned all about the birds and the bees before we should have learned about birds and the bees. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much evil in the school system that kids talk about, oh, hey, look what I got. I got my dad's Playboy. I brought it to school. Like, I mean, in elementary school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just you don't know. You have no control over that, right? And so when, like you said, when you can control that environment and you can keep them young, right? Like they should be little. For as long as they can be.
Yep.
That's what like the other thing. We have shows like Teen Mom 2 that promotes and like, oh yeah, go out here and get pregnant. It's great. It's wonderful because then you get a TV show and you get a million book deals. You'll be a social media hit. You can have all the kids you want and you're going to have all this, whatever, right? We don't teach them how they should be raised. Like you said, kids are raising kids. Go back and look at all the Teen Mom 2s or all the Teen Moms. Look at their kids. Look at the mistakes that their kids are making now. The same mistakes that they made. Why? Because it's generational curses now. Right now,
you're preaching today. You're preaching today.
And now you just created that generational curse. Now somebody's going to have to be responsible for breaking it. Somebody's going to have to wake up, or it's just going to continue to repeat itself. And that's what we have in America today: is a continual perpetuation of generational curses, one generation to the next. Right? And I was like, no, we're done with this. We're done with the school thing. This is one that this is an easy one I can break. Right? Like, and all I got. I mean, okay. It takes away my time during the day, right? Or my wife's time during the day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what? Right? Like, so what? At least I know my kids are safe. They're not getting into things that they shouldn't be getting into.
Yep.
And I know what they're being taught.
Yep.
And that
and look at how much they're learning. They're not only learning, the solid just book work. They are learning life skills at home with their parents, with their family. Right. They're learning, and like you said, I love that you hit it on the head, that church is socialization. 100%. It is fellowship with other people. I mean, it's like little things like that you don't think of.
Right.
But it 100% is.
Yep.
It's just like my children can literally have a conversation with other kids with different ages, even adults.
Yep.
Because they're not used to just sitting in a class with people the same age.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they can hold conversation. They can talk to you about all sorts of things on the homestead and things like that. It's like people are so quick to be like, what about socialization? You're sheltering them. Am I? I would love for you to just take a seat in front of my kids and have a conversation and watch your mind be blown.
Yep.
And you're teaching them, honestly, like my son, he is 6 years old. He has more responsibilities than I did.
Yep.
I wake up in the morning. He's already up. 9 times out of 10, he's already outside feeding the chickens, letting them out of the coop. I'm out there going out there with him, or he's waiting on me. He's like, come on, Dad, let's go let's feed the animals. He's already out at 6 years old.
Right.
He's feeding animals, checking on their water, checking eggs.
Yep.
A 6-year-old is doing all of this. Let me know of a 6-year-old that goes to public school all the time who's exactly. They're on that and they're so consumed with other things. You tell them to go outside, they look at you like you're crazy. What?
Yep.
Outside?
Yeah. No. What's that?
Yeah. And it's like, we are really missing it. And since when have human beings become so dumb that we can't teach our own children?
Right. Right.
I mean, basic life skills.
If you can teach your child how to walk and their ABCs, if you can teach them how to use a spoon, how to use a fork, how to, if you can teach them these basic things, you can 100% homeschool them.
Absolutely.
You just have to put your kids first.
Yep.
You have to know that you have a responsibility.
Yep.
And you do, and that's the thing. We also live in a time where people don't want to be held accountable.
No.
People don't want to work hard.
Nope.
And they don't have a connection with their kids to the point where they care when it comes to their education. They would rather put their kids in a room with 25 other students and a teacher who's exhausted.
Right.
Who is one person. I can't imagine.
No.
I cannot imagine teaching 25 kids.
And then, and not only that, like, you do have good teachers. I don't want anybody to think we don't think
correct.
That, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there are 100% good teachers, but you have predator teachers out there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Both male and female, who are looking for young, impressionable girls and boys that they can have their way with.
Yeah.
Right. And you're keeping them away from that. You're protecting them from that. Right.
Yep.
Like, there are so many benefits. If you sit down and list the benefits to go to public school versus listing the benefits to being homeschooled, I guarantee you will come up with way more for homeschooling your children than you will to send into public schools, right?
I've seen people when I was in school. I saw people dating teachers. That was a normal thing.
Yep.
That was legit a normal thing. And nobody said anything.
Nope.
It was just this thing. Everybody kept on hush because as a child, as a teenager, you are literally programmed. I remember being programmed. To this day, I'm like, I can't believe I didn't tell anybody that.
Right.
Like, you don't think about it. You're programmed to thinking, shh, whatever, that's cool.
Right.
Like that's
good job, man.
Yeah.
And you're just, as an adult, I'm like, how did nobody see that these things were not okay? Like, how was, like, we were so programmed.
Yep.
Like, and it's just like,
into it.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to being, the worldliness and, everything, being the way it is because that's how Satan has it, right? Like, he has control over all those things, right? His fingers are in every little thing, right?
Yep.
And so, it's just being aware of that and wanting better for your kids is really what it is about. And so, I always encourage people to homeschool their kids. Like, there's people that I understand they can't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it literally takes both of the parents working to get by, but it shouldn't be like that.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be like that.
And they've systematically made it like that to where you're either going to be broke and on welfare, or you're going to be working to get by or have nice things. And it's going to take both of you to do it because at the end, they want the kids.
Yep.
And as long as they can pull the kids away, you know what I mean? Like they've got the next generation of what the little soldiers, whatever you want to call it, for their, whatever they want, like their total control or whatever you want to call it.
You look at today and you look at the needs that we see as needs. Back then, every family didn't need 2 vehicles.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? And that's a need.
Right.
Because what if she needs to go to the grocery store and I'm at work?
Well, what if they need to go to the hospital and you're at work?
You don't see these things, back then as needs. And then now it's a must. You have to have 2 vehicles. If you don't, you're looking for a second vehicle. Yep. Or like, let's say the house, each child has to have their own room.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? My kids.
All 3 of us was in the same room forever almost.
Yes, it's like the needs have changed so much that it's like we tell ourselves, well, I can't do this because then we'll have to cut budget or we'll have to get rid of our vehicle or our kids one of them's we'll have to downsize, and then you really list it out and look and you're like, we could make this work, but do we want to?
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, you think about this, most of our grandparents were siblings of 6 to 12 to 17 kids in one house. And you would hear stories of, well, when I got this age, I took care of little Jimmy and John and Sarah and Bethany and blah, blah, blah. And then my older sisters took care of me and such. And mama did the cooking and the cleaning.
Yeah.
There was that family unit though. The family was put first. They did everything together. Like I always tell the kids, and I'm not joking about it. Like when I say I want all of us to live on the same grid, like in the same area or on the same piece of property, if it's a huge piece and we all live there, that's fine with me because at least I've got all of you here. Like you got your own family, you got your own house. That's great, but we got a community within ourselves. It's all about us. You know what I mean? And I try to teach them that from an early age, because I wasn't necessarily brought up like that.
Right.
It was, you're raised, you're gone.
Yep.
See you later. Adios. Have a good life. Right. I don't want that for them. And it's not that I want to coddle them or keep them close by,
right,
so I can keep an eye on them or whatever. Like, by all means, be your own family, do your own thing. But I want you close, because that's what family's about. It's about being close, right? And about having that tight network. And that's what we try to create here is that tight network,
Well, and that's the issue with the Western side. It's like we've literally changed everything.
Yep.
You still go to, like, that was one of the complaints of the family I told you is from Africa in our church. He was like, in Africa, like, I could walk into our family's house without being invited. I could do this. We were all super close. Family was always around.
Right.
Like, there was no like hesitating about somebody coming over. He's like, here in America, it's like you barely see your neighbors.
Right.
There's like he explains the disconnect so well.
Yeah.
And I'm just like sitting here and I'm like, you're right. Yeah. I'm like, you go overseas and you see all these other countries, it is not a shocker when the husband and wife take in the parents.
Right.
When they get older, you set a room aside and you take them in, and they help you raise your kids, or they're old enough, where you help them.
But here we put them in a nursing home.
Homes.
Yeah.
There's no nursing homes.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for 3 generations to live in the same home.
Right. Exactly.
And here, like that, we're cultivating the same thing you are. Like, we told our kids, I'm like, at the end of the day, don't rush out of our home.
Nope.
Like, when you hit 18, you don't have to leave.
Nope.
Like, you don't have to go. Stay here, work what you need to. And like you said, if we could get enough property, how much of a success would it be for your children to build a house on the 20, 40, 50 acres that is already paid off? There's no debt, no nothing. They're living there, maintaining. That is the biggest success story you could ever have for your kids, is being debt-free, owning a home, living on a home and property, and being able to take care of yourself. Right. We kick people out at 18, 19, said, like you said, go get an apartment, get a car, do your own, take out loans, get credit cards, because that's the American way.
And then what happens? They get into debt, and then they come to us, and they're just like, I need help. And what are we as the parents? We help them. Yep. And you're just like, we helped you create this debt because we were so, gung-ho on you going to this big university to experience all it has, when you could do tons of things. You can go to trade school. You can go to an online or a community college. Yep. You don't even have to go to college. Some ways you can do certain things if that's the calling or whatever you have.
Right.
There's other options. It's just, it's not, spoken about too often. When somebody thinks trade school, they're like,
right. Well, schools don't push it. Schools don't push trade school anymore.
No.
Like when I was in school, you had shop class, you had AutoCAD, you had auto body, you had all these other. They don't have that anymore. There's no vocab anymore. It's you got to go here, you got to learn this, and then you got to go to college, you got to learn something to get a degree. Yeah. America makes billions off of college debt. Billions off of college debt. We don't talk about that.
Nope.
But we sure let our kids believe that they can't make it unless they go to college. No. Then they go to college, they get into something that they think they want at 18, which none of us know what we want at 18 years old.
No.
And they go for it only to find out, I didn't like that much. So then they go for a different degree, get that much more into debt, or they change their main whatever it's called, right? And then the parents are like, well, I can't believe you've done that. They were 18. Yeah.
You know what I've noticed? The people who truly, because I've just seen this going on. The people who really want to go to college for a certain thing, they find a way to get a scholarship, or they are educated enough to where they worked hard in high school to get those type of, scholarships or grants or whatever it is.
Right.
They find a way. If somebody wants to become a doctor, you better believe they are working hard as a freshman, sophomore, junior in high school for that thing. It's a lot of the time the ones that are in debt is when they're like, oh no, I don't know what to do with my life, and I'm a senior, and the counselor is telling me I have to go to college. Let me just put these applications in. And then they end up going and they're just like, I hate it.
Yep.
Or they're in debt, or they'll go for something that they're not getting a job in. How many people have gone and done theater in college, or like graphic design and stuff, and they're doing nothing?
Underwater basket weaving, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, like there's so many things. The other thing that we don't push is the military, right? Like, okay, you can't afford school, the military will pay for it. Go over there. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going into the military so that they'll pay for your college. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like
4 years, you just go 4 years.
Right, exactly.
Hop
And
out.
nobody talks about that. You know, like there's so many countries that are mandatory. You do 2 years of service, right? Look at how those countries are going. Like Korea, 2 years of mandatory service you have to do. Israel, same thing. You got to do like 2 or 4 years of mandatory service. Like it gives them structure at an early age, right? Like there's a time frame, like 18 to 20. You have, between those years, or 18 to 22, you have to do 2 years between at least, like, so if you're 22, you got to go in at 22. That's your time limit, right? You've done wasted all the time you can. You got to go in at least by that date. But, there's structure to those people. Like there's that's one thing we cannot deny about the military is that, well, maybe not now. Don't know how it is. Like they don't have to do much now, right? Like when I was getting out, they quit shining boots and quit ironing uniforms. And I'm sitting there going, what? I spent all this time ironing uniforms and shining boots.
Yep.
And now we don't have to do it anymore.
Yep.
So I don't know how it is now, like how much discipline they have now. They get their cell phones during boot camp now, right? But back when I was in, Lord, I never thought I'd say that, but back when I was in, it was different. Like there was structure. You came out with discipline, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? Like there should be more of that, and we should push more for that. But I've said this before in church, when I've preached a sermon, that even Christians want it easy. We expect it to be easy. We just want to go over to the ice cream machine, put our mouth under the fountain part, pull the handle and fill up with ice cream and walk away. Like we don't even want to get the spoon out. We're that lazy, and that's with everything in life anymore. And really you have to ask yourself the question is, was life really that bad when it wasn't that easy?
That's good.
Because it really wasn't. It wasn't that bad. It was a better time.
Because I've talked to my grandfather a lot. He's passed away now, but he lived through a part of the Great Depression, and he told me that he was like, we lived in a little tiny. It was like probably 900 square foot home. Right. His mom, his dad, I think him, and like 4 other siblings all lived in this tiny night. His uncle even lived with him for a while. It was like you said, that family community was there. And we think about it being rough, but at the end of the day, when you really look back, and I talked to my papa, man, he talked about how much fun he had, all the good times. He was like, man, this old timer would drive the flatbed truck around the neighborhood. All the kids would jump on it, and he would take them down to the watering hole. And
that's fun.
He's like, and then we get dropped back off, and they talk about all this. And there's a saying that I've said many times, and it was like, tough men make easy times. Yep. Easy times make easy men make tough times. Yep. And I think we're at that point where we're easy men have made some tough times, and it's going to take some tough men to get back out there and do what we're supposed to do. And being former military myself, I was in during that shift period. I went in 2011, got out in 2015. So I seen a lot of that shift happen in the military. And even with me getting out at that time, I was like, man, y'all are soft. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, man, like the things I went through, and you're not even touching that, and you're crying wolf and getting drill instructors in trouble. And I'm like, what are y'all? So it's so sad seeing the softness that's coming.
There's no
in
respect
America.
for anything.
There isn't.
There's no respect, dignity for anything.
No. And like you said, even on the Christian front, like I've said it many times when I preached, I'm like, it would be amazing if we could get baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost and go to heaven, and we're done. Like, Man, woo, I'd sign up for that all day, but that's not how it is.
Right.
We get commissioned into the Lord's army to
Right.
fight in the kingdom of God.
Yep.
So there's so much more
We're
that is
running a
required of it.
race. We're running a race
Right.
the whole time.
Right.
And it's just like, and the way I explained it to my kids, I was like, I'm not expecting you to be perfect.
Yeah.
You're running a race, and even in a race, there's times you got to stop for water.
Yep.
You know, you need to stop for water. You got to take a little time to, get yourself together and get back in the race.
Yep.
I was like, that's with anything. You got to take some time. I'm not expecting perfection, but I want you running.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. You got to soldier on,
Yep.
That's what it's all about, So, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, we see a shift, and what we do as parents creates our kids to be those tougher, stronger people that create the change that needs to happen. I don't know that that'll happen, but I hope it does. Right. If not, let God come back and we'll all be fine anyhow. Right.
Yeah. Like I said,
Amen.
I see a glimpse of it. I mean, I keep talking about my son, but he's my only boy. So I'm kind of like partial to him.
Right.
But I mean, he's 6 years old and he'll ask me all the time. He'd be like, "Hey Dad, when can I chop wood? When do I get to play with the axe?" I'm like, "Not yet."
Right.
Get a little older, but he's already in that mindset. He's like, "Man, I want to chop wood. Hey, I'm ready to do this. So
which he does. He'll
he
do
does.
it along with it, but he wants to do it himself.
Yeah.
Right.
He wants to do everything himself. And I'm like, Hollis, you can do things, but you need some type of supervision for some things.
Yeah.
So, because he thinks he's a grown man.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the shift, I think the shift is happening. I think it's really happening. It's just not, again, I mean, media and everything's not going to cover that.
Right.
They're not going to show the shift happening because it goes against the narrative.
Right.
So when we start talking like we are now and other people are tuning in, watching as well, they see that the shift is really happening and it's a major undertow that's happening. It's that undercurrent that's not being seen, but it's very powerful and mighty. And it's coming from men and women of God who are taking this stand and who's not afraid to speak out against this stuff and stand up and say, you know what, I'm done with this. Like we've gone with it for too long. We followed the system too long. I'm tired of my children coming home as Romans. I'm ready for them to come home as Christians.
That's right.
And I'm going to put them in my home and I'm going to create that and I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And God is going to be what gives me the strength, the wisdom, and the knowledge to bring it about.
That's right.
Amen.
That's good.
Perfect. Yep. That was
Good.
perfect.
That was a perfect ending.
Yes, it was. So let me go through this real quick. And then what I'll do is I'll end this and then you guys stay on and we'll finish up on the other end of it.
Okay.
I just got to run through who we got coming on next couple weeks. So September 5th, next week. So we got Nicole Smith Gardening coming on. September 12th, Chase from Trophy Smack. He's the Trophy Smack is the one who is helped sponsoring the Giant Pumpkin Size Does Matter challenge for the pumpkins that we're growing on YouTube this year. Then September 19th. I didn't write it in here. Let me write it real quick. Chad New from Colorado Giants is going to be on with us. It was Sandy, but Sandy from Wyoming, Arizona, Homesteader, she had to cancel. So she'll be back on at a later date. Then the 26th of September will be Randall from Extreme Gardening and Travis Ginger, who holds the North American record at 2,560 pounds for a giant pumpkin. Yeah. He just weighed one the other day that was like 70 days old or something. It was like 2,200 pounds. It would have been probably over 3,000, but it had a little crack in it. And it would have been disqualified. So he went ahead and pulled it. October 3rd, we have Yogi Hollow Farm. Lisa will be on with us. October 11th is a Wednesday. I'll be traveling on that Tuesday, so we moved it to a Wednesday. It'll be Tony from Kettle Kitchen who will be on with us then. October 17th, we have Acorn Creek Farmstead that's going to be on with us. And then on October 24th, we have 7 Ken Homestead going to be on with us. October 31st is open. November 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th are all open if anybody wants those days. December 5th, we have Enoch Graham from the Urban Gardener coming on. December 12th, 19th, and 26th are all open. So if anybody would like to do a live stream this year, you're more than welcome to. Just email me at babydrill2119@yahoo.com. We can have a lot of fun. We'll go as long as you want to. And I don't care how big the YouTube channel is. It don't matter if you got 5 subscribers or 1 million subscribers. We want you on if you want to be on. So, guys, we've had a wonderful evening. Thank you again to Jesus Loving Homesteader, for Nathan and Carmen, for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. I do mean that wholeheartedly. You guys were awesome. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you.
Would love to have you guys on again if you ever want to come on again. So, guys, we're going to end it here. So, everybody, we appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time right here in the Hollers and Hills of West Virginia. See y'all.